I want you guys to really think about this, if you will. Distribution of non-cash property, even if it's highly appreciated, nobody pays for it. But we're not going to have time to go through guide distributions, free contribution, profit, crazy stuff.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're fine.
Voice
Roll
of authority.
call. I know, it's just a tone I never hear from you, Phil.
What are you doing with this fancy boat?
Are we in?
Yeah.
We're live.
We're live.
Okay.
Oh, dope.
Hi, everybody. I'm Phil, and I'm sitting with Jana Richter and Siesa Shuman. We just thought it would be appropriate to have them on with the nationwide protests still happening. They are activists. I guess that's a question I have. Do y'all call yourselves like Black Lives Matter activists, or how does that?
I'm mad about everything.
You're mad about everything? Okay.
I would loosely use the term activist, yes.
Yeah.
Definitely Black Lives Matter it's on the list.
Word.
It's pretty high up there.
Black
Sure.
Lives Matter, Native Lives Matter.
Yeah.
I think BIPOC is the typical term that I use.
Sure.
So,
Cool. Well, you guys have been doing some stuff in town.
yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about what you've been up to and how you think it's been going?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So Jackie Patten, who is not here today, she came to Siesa and I a few weeks ago with the idea of wanting to create a memorial just leading up to the protests, just to commemorate not only George Floyd, but other people in our community and nationwide who've lost their lives to police brutality and systemic racism. So we had it up from Monday until the Sunday of the protest, and every night at 6 we had a community leader speak, sometimes pray, we would take a moment of silence, 8 minutes and 46 seconds, because that was how long George Floyd was pinned down. And then we had a list of names. People could add names to the list. A few nights we read those names. And then we also had some action steps, places to donate. And we were just talking to the community members, trying to, see what their thoughts were. And that was a very, very awesome experience to have. And I think Siesa can speak a little bit more to that.
Yeah, I wasn't really, definitely, it sucks that Jackie's not here because Jackie really spearheaded this whole thing, and I was just at home, and I got a text message, and she was like, how angry are you right now? And I was like, I'm pretty angry, pretty decently angry. She was like, well, you want to do something about it? And I was like, literally anything. And in the beginning, we really thought it was just going to be, whatever expectations I had for the whole ordeal was completely wrong. I thought we were going to bring these people out, people were going to help us make some art, we were going to put it on the fence at Kirk's Grocery, and maybe it would be there for a night, 2 days before it started some rigmarole, and people came and they would like take it down, and we're going to get in a bunch of arguments with people. I thought we were going to have a problem with like landlords, with the cops, with the people in Billings, and I was just completely wrong about all of that. And it's a pretty good thing to be wrong about.
Yeah.
And then it started getting to be more like, it wasn't just we were going to put the fence up, it was Lisa Harmon's going to come by, Rabbi Yuri's going to come, and I was like, oh, well, that's really great. And then the second day came, and they kept coming, and people came every single day. I saw the same faces over and over again. People were bringing their kids, and it definitely changed like a lot of my perceptions about Billings. Definitely like my first year here, I was like, yo, fuck this place. Yeah. I'm like, this is insane. The casual racism, I would say not so much against black people, but against Native Americans was completely like wild to me.
Yeah, it's out of hand.
Yeah, it is. I'm like, but the good thing, and I feel like definitely like one of my biggest, like the biggest presence I've had here in Billings is just going places and getting really angry and fussing people out. And I'm like, so that's how I started talking to Chris Kukulski, the city administrator, because I'm like, was getting sassy with the police chief, which is not to say that like he didn't deserve to get a little sassy with, but I'm like just out here, and I'm like in grocery stores, and I like just having conversations with the cashier, and they're like, oh, if only the Native Americans didn't bring so much meth in. And I'm like, well, no, I've got to stop this entire line and explain to you in depth why that's racist and why it's also not true. And I really thought I was just like raging, like screaming to the point. And I'm like, this place, this is what this place is. It's the negative experience I've had, that blatant white supremacist who bothered me out of a whole apartment. That was pretty crazy too. And so when the week of the memorial came, and there's all of these people, like, people are telling me that's not what Billings is. There's the different communities. The interfaith community is good. These people actually care. And I like couldn't be bothered to believe that at all. And then the week happened, and it was like tangible, like right there in front of me, that I was wrong about a lot of different things. And so I mean, it's a good thing to be wrong about.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah. And even like all the nights that it rained, and like people just kept coming back out and replacing all the chalk, replacing the stuff that the posters that had gotten wiped out, like people standing in the rain even a couple nights, which was just, I don't know, very moving. Didn't expect as many people to come. Cool. I was also pleasantly surprised by the presence of Billings, but...
Yeah, and Billings showed up for the protest too on Sunday. There's a good number of people downtown.
Yeah, I think it was, close to 2,000.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I wasn't there.
I think it was like 8. I think
we'll get into that later.
But when Billings took the streets, like, just and started like actually marching around, then I was like, oh shit. Like, good for Billings. Like, I expected people to be a little bit, I don't know.
Docile
somehow, but like even like laying down in the streets and like laying down in the rain and just like still marching in the hail.
Right.
that was.
Well, I think that's not just like a thing that's happening in Billings. It's a thing that I'm seeing happen everywhere. Like even especially like on social media. Like, and I know like we discount it a lot, and there is problems with like people who feel like the only form of activism they take place is online. And I feel like online is not a bad place to say those things and distribute those information as long as other things are happening. But I've seen people take like hard stances, like cussing out their grandmas and their bosses, and like just being like, no, this is not okay, and not just being like, oh, I'm on the side of these people and I support them, but being like, this is why I'm on my side. I'm saying right now I'm anti-racist. I am for Black Lives Matter. Like these are things I stand for, and pointing out like the issues. Like people are always talking about, I'm educating myself on the topics, I'm learning more and more, and I just assumed that people were lying because it's really easy to say things like that. And then I'm seeing all of these people bring out all of these great points about like white supremacy and like systemic oppression, and talking about like real actionable steps that have been put forward already, like not things that we as like individuals usually come up and like we're like, maybe we'll talk about this, but actual policies that could be put into place that have been like researched and understood. And I'm like wow, people are actually putting into the work. Like I don't know, maybe I don't have a lot of I don't like have a lot of faith in people, or I really I really do know that a lot of people in their heart of hearts feel a certain way, but like that needs to be backed up with like formal change in the system. And to see people saying, these are the people I support who will enact these different policies, and these are the different legislations that need to go forward. Oh, and watching racists get fired on the internet.
That is so
so good.
Like lawyers
So
and shit.
good.
I know, business owners, just ladies. This one lady's getting bumped from like a subscription box, and I'm like, wow, yes, I love it. And I don't assume that all of these companies necessarily care, but it's been made. I like this is how I feel about deleting and everything. It's been made clear that racism is bad for business, and it's like you don't have to not be a racist, but your money is like at like risk now, which I think is one of the reasons why racism is still prevalent now. Not necessarily because people actually believe in race supremacy and race science and things like that, but because it pays. It's really good at keeping money in certain circles and certain places, and so someone can company and my bottom line so that they keep those racist policies going. And I think it needs to be made clear that like you cannot make money from this anymore, which is not necessarily true now, but I feel like that's the direction we're headed. Hearts and minds is like one issue.
Talk about wallets.
Yeah, exactly. Like I really don't care if Lucianne down the street doesn't like black people. She just should have no control over my life besides what she can say to me on the sidewalk, but it should never be enacted in the way and like redlining or where I can live or the kind of services I have access to, or if I'll get housing or anything like that. It should just be her terrible opinion.
Just naked.
I think also that like social media has also been a really good outlet, because I think that I definitely learned about a lot of that, especially in college. But now I feel like a lot of that information has been made a lot more digestible for people who maybe don't either have access to, peer-reviewed articles or like don't know how to find those stats. And now those stats are just like on your Instagram screen. You can just swipe it and repost it. And I think that people are having a lot easier time understanding that too. And that's why people are also taking action. You can just click a link and sign 8 petitions in 2 minutes. And you have all the numbers to your legislators on an Instagram post, and you can just call all of them. And I think that people do care. I just think that sometimes when you Google search and you have to click 8 times, look through an article, click through this, people like get really, I don't know, discouraged. You lose them. But I feel like a lot more people have been saying, oh, it's right here. I'll do it now. And so I think it's a lot about making it more. Maybe unfortunately they have to make it more digestible for white people, but like at the same time, other people don't have access to that information, or maybe don't have, a lot of those articles too. You have to have a university account, or you have to have like some sort of like so I think that that's good for that.
I feel like there's definitely a boundary between that type of information, which can lead to like really good activism. Like I've got like my personal beef with stats, because stats can be taken, they're so easily misconstrued.
True.
But it's up to this point that like the reason why stats are not a really good thing to share, or why they can be detrimental, is because education is gatekept, and it's something that's not even, definitely race has something to do with it, but it's definitely a class issue. So not only do the people like you're discriminating against not have access to these peer-reviewed articles, or even to did your high school education give you a good introduction to stats that you were able to take, and did they tell you how to apply that to regular things that you're reading across the way? So like, even not just the information is gatekept, like the access to like really digest this information is gatekept. And I don't think of like I'm always talking about like, I feel like super privileged because I was able to go and get a pretty decent education, but I also but like that was from a place of privilege. Not everyone can be able to do that. But one thing that I know when I'm talking to people who haven't been to school, or I'm trying to have these conversations with them, is they're like, well, I didn't get to go to college. And I'm like, I'm not any better than you because I went to college. Most of the things that I know about the world I live in, or the things that I'm passionate about, are not things that I learned in a college classroom. I mean, it was easy to, like, it was conducive for me to learn how to digest that information, or just learning research techniques to be able to know, like just how to read an article and tell like the author has a bias or something like that. Yeah. And I'm like, but those are things that could be done without going to school. Sure. But you know, when you have people, they're like, am I gonna, like, they're laying in bed at night, they're like, gotta pay my mortgage, how am I gonna, you know, get my car note right? Like, kid needs pants, kid needs shoes. Are they really gonna sit down in their spare time and teach themselves stats? Yeah. And the thing is, the answer is no, but it's also, you should. Like, it's definitely hard. Like, there's nothing pleasant about knowing too much about the world that we live in. To be honest, I'm like, and people are like, I don't want to be stressed out, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm asking you to be stressed out, because like, maybe it doesn't affect you, or maybe it doesn't affect you in a way that you feel like you need to address, and I'm like, but I'm physically asking you to give me a little bit of your peace of mind, right? Like, and like, people are like, is that too much to ask from another person? Like, for that much emotional labor from just average people who maybe I don't interact with all the time? In my personal opinion, is absolutely not. Racism sucks. Stop supporting it. Yeah. Like, through apathy. I'm like, so sorry that it's gonna make your life worse, but like, I didn't have an option. Right. Yeah, you could try walking around black for a day or whatever. Exactly. I'm like, it's like, it shouldn't even be there, because I'm like, it's just it's a frustrating thing, but I'm ranting again. Jana, any segue?
I wanted to go back to something, if I could. I'm really interested in like how communities are showing up for these things. Like, there's now the autonomous zone in Seattle. What's it called again?
The Chaz.
Chaz. Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, right? So it's kind of cool, like, how the confluence of events is happening where, like, while we're thinking about defunding the police and, like, reinvesting in communities, like, we're seeing how effective community action is already, like, without actual, like, policies even yet. Like, we're seeing people going and, like, making a fucking autonomous zone, right? Like, and I actually need to do more research about that zone. Like, I guess, are cops allowed to go there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they can't be armed.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, but I would say that like those autonomous zones for people acting outside of police, that's things that white people have already had access to. Like when we think of like small isolated towns where they're like, the law is one thing, but really we protect ourselves as a community and we handle things in-house. That is also a privilege that not a lot of people are able to have. But it's not something that I want to take away from people. Sure. I think it's something that more people should have access to, like investment in your own community. I think it's like the police are already not solving like such a large percentage of like violent crime. So they're like, who's going to stop the domestic abusers? And I'm like, you've not been stopping the domestic abusers. And I'm like, so how do we change like a culture or the way that we operate within a system to make sure that like, it's like, if people know, it doesn't take just, no, I'm talking anarchy bullshit right now.
Get on it.
Completely get on it. I think I'm listening to my words and I'm like, ooh, you're about to expose yourself.
Get on it.
But I really do believe that like, I've been seeing a lot of things about like, police chiefs who are going on and they're like, why are you so mean to the police? We're asked to do too much. And I'm like, wow, that's my point. And
Yeah.
I'm like, here's you and here's the point. Like, what are you not getting? And I'm like, there are so many things that police are supposed to deal with in our society that they should not be on their plates whatsoever.
Right. No, exactly.
Police should not be the first line of defense on the mental, like, should not be the first stop when someone's having problems with mental illness. It shouldn't be the cops who are intervening in those situations. Like,
neighbor disputes or
exactly. Like, there's other ways that, like, there's other platforms, whole industries and disciplines that are trained to deal with these problems, like social workers, like emergency responders and everything like that. And they're like, why are we making the cops do that? And I'm like, you're absolutely right. It's almost as if we should defund the police and divert all of those funds into these things that already exist, into this infrastructure that's already here, give them the responsibilities they're actually equipped with dealing with, and make sure that cops are only in situations where a man with a gun is needed. And if situations where they're not, they don't have to risk their lives or anything like that on small petty things. They don't have to worry about the backlog of paperwork and everything that they're tired of dealing with if they're only being utilized in the ways that they absolutely should be.
Right.
But then you say defund the police and they're like, oh my god, they're coming for the police salaries.
Yeah.
Like they're getting paid anything in the first place.
Yeah.
It's just, it's...
Also, no one says shit when people defund education systems.
No.
Fucking take 50 schools in Chicago in 1 year, like they did a couple years ago. Like, people are like, defund. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't mean necessarily having to take it away. It's a transition.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, I think in some models, the police are still a small department, just a small department in a larger scheme of many departments. Like, and like that dude that fell asleep at the Wendy's drive-thru could have fucking called a tow truck, and you called the police and he got shot. Like,
I mean, but it's like,
like, why is that a police matter? It's a dude falling asleep in a car.
The problem is some people is it's not just saying, like, trying to convince the police it's not a police matter.
Yeah.
There's like a large section of the people that we just regularly live among who I wouldn't necessarily consider bad people just from like their intentions and everything, but who believe these situations should be dealt with a man with a gun. Where you're like, you don't need a cop for that, and they'll disagree with you on that. So like, we want to get all the way to the defunding. We haven't even addressed like the culture that makes people believe that the police are a private security force. And I'm like, I'm always laughing when people are like, well, if you don't trust the cops, don't call them. And I'm like, what do you think whole communities have been doing for the last couple of years? I'm like, in the same vein, you'll talk about the don't snitch policies in these communities, and then you'll say don't call the cops. Like, which is it? Because it cannot be both. Either we are not calling the cops or we don't. And it's also really messed up to think that, like, because I don't trust the system that I live under, I shouldn't be allowed the protection that I'm buying into, that I have a social contract with. And I'm like, because I disagree with you, I've got to go, instead of I should stay here and start making changes in the system so that I feel comfortable calling the police when something is stolen. And I'm also confident that maybe they'll find something. It's just...
do something useful, yeah. I'm curious if you guys think, like, there's a sort of consciousness happening where people are, like, realizing, like, these structural components that are here, and I mean, it's interesting how it's happened with the coronavirus too, like, where people are getting, like, unemployment checks that, like, it looks a lot like UBI, right? Like universal basic income. And I don't know, there seems like, I dare say, like, a class consciousness thing that could be happening, where it's, like, becoming very apparent how disposable we on the bottom are, especially if, like, your skin is the wrong color. And it's one thing I wanted to point out too that I think is hopeful is, like, in Billings at the memorial, there was, like, a big presence of, like, Native Lives Matter stuff, and I've been really happy to see, like, indigenous people and, you know, blacks and people of color or whatever, like, working together to recognize, like, common sources of oppression that are happening. Like, oh, we're all getting killed by cops out here, like, indiscriminately. Like, let's talk about that together. So I don't know if you want to talk about any of that, but...
Jamie, you got something to say about that before I go off?
Okay, I don't know about. I mean, building class consciousness, maybe, but there's still maybe amongst the people who are like on the fence and like the moderate, quote unquote moderates who are. I hate
moderate
using moderate.
anarchists.
Yeah, I would say among those people, especially amongst friends of mine who I think didn't know the history of the police and where the police started and how that little. Part of the 13th Amendment where, is basically another form of slavery by incarcerating people of color.
Right.
So, like, I think that is, like, the dots are connecting in the way that, like, people are like, there are just sections of history that we've never learned.
Right.
But I still think there's a large part of the population that is ignoring it and has gone back to posting selfies on Instagram and is like, that doesn't matter. It's just another protest. We'll go on to something else. So, I mean, and that's granted a lot of people I know who I think also kind of fall, not necessarily in the upper class, like pretty, just people who people who are white and don't give a shit. And I'm not saying it's only white people, but I'm saying that, like, I don't know, there might be more people involved. I think that there maybe is some sort of class consciousness, but it's, I don't know. I don't know if it's as large as I would like to think it is.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say, but I think that Siesa has some other things probably to add to that.
I think the foundation for class consciousness is nearly complete. I feel like we're not there as where we're all connected, but I think a lot of people are seeing this among like conservatives and leftists and fuck centrists, doing whatever. But it's like there's a lot of people who are all coming to the same conclusion that something with the government is wrong and that regular people are getting fucked over. And really where like we both agree on that, and where we need to come into the middle is we're blaming each other for it. And I'm like other poor people are not the reason that I am poor. It's like it's not a thing. It doesn't make sense. And I'm like, we're fighting over scraps, and I'm like, and the thing is not who has the most scraps, is why is there this is the only thing we have access to. And I feel like these conversations like are coming to, and this you're talking about like people are learning more about like what systemic racism is and things like that. And up to this point, I feel like those words have really been buzzwords pushed forward by an educated liberal class.
Yeah.
And to average people, and which is not to like say like average with a negative connotation, but to people who did not take a sex and gender class,
right,
which I completely like 100% find complete value in. And I'm like, but these words don't have the context of that education. And really what I think of it like at the end of the day is when we reach class consciousness is when we're all going to stop caring about what rich old white guys who were sipping coffee in cafes decided we were going to live our lives. And like I'm not just talking about like the founding fathers or Thomas Hobbes, I'm talking about like Karl Marx too. And I'm like we keep looking back to these people who one didn't even live the lives that we are living in now when it comes to class wise, and not to say that they never had any good ideas or there are things that we should definitely take and principles we should keep, but I'm like, we're at this point where we all have this access to information and we're all connected to each other. Well, not all, because there's still disparities in who has access to the internet and technology and even the fucking mail now. But we're to this point where I don't know why we keep looking back and asking people what we should be doing with our lives here when we could be having that conversation with each other like in real time. So we like hold up like a structure and you've got two groups who violently disagree with each other, but they all disagree that the structure is wrong. Why can't the conversation begin? What would we like to replace it with? Like, what is the system we actually want to live in? Like, what are the things we want to keep? What are the things we want to get rid of? And what matters to us as a condensed population who are all in the same place? But that conversation's not happening, and I'm like not trying to be like holier than thou when I'm like talking to someone who's like a hardcore conservative who pushes for conservative legislation and policies. I start seeing red. I'm like, I'm like, what are you not understanding about the thing that I am telling you? How could you have these opinions? And it's like even like as individuals, like I'm not going to be the person to have those conversations, but that's why I think it takes all kinds. Like people who are good at moderating, who are good at facilitating, who are able to push their personal beliefs to the side in order to have those conversations. Those people are absolutely needed. I am not them. It's not going to be me, but the more people like are just average people who are like getting into this, who are really saying, well, maybe I didn't care about this before. There were so many older people who came to the memorial and would come up to me and they'd be like, I'm 67 and I've never ever spoken out about these things. And I'm like, yeah, I hate that. But honestly, I'm glad that you're here talking about it right now. And I feel like a lot of these feelings are amplified by our feelings of isolation with like, you know, just having to quarantine and everything, plus like our heightened sense of like what's going on in the media, specifically because we're all at home looking at our phones and everything like that, plus like the threat of mortality everyone's thinking about, like what it means to just casually die that night.
So fucking true.
So you get all of this and you condense it, and I feel like the reason why George Floyd I feel like if the George Floyd specific incident or any incident of like Ahmaud Arbery, and we're like learning about Breonna Taylor and all these different things, I feel like a couple of months ago they would have been regular protests, like the protests we're used to seeing. We spend 2 weeks, we get a nice hashtag, and we move on from that. But I feel like in the period that we're in now, and the constant mass trauma we're all going through together, that it can't, like, it just seems so much amplified. And I think to white people now, and to people who maybe didn't care about these issues beforehand, it's starting to feel slightly as poignant as it always does to communities of color. Where I'm like the panic, the absolute fear, the disgust, the way you're like, how could this be happening right now? That is how I feel all of the time. I'm like, George Floyd doesn't feel more poignant to me than the things that have happened in the past, because this has been a baseline for so many communities, for Native communities and for Black communities with their interaction with the police, that nothing is more drastic than it ever was, because it was always this drastic. But now other people, you know, are starting to feel that same sense of urgency. And I'm into that. I'm like, let the panic set in. And I'm like, if you feel, people are like, I need to take a break from social media. I absolutely can't live like this. And I'm like, you should live like this. I'm like, this is good. I'm glad that you're uncomfortable. Like, your discomfort is pleasing to me, because this is the only thing it's going to take in order for anything to be done about it.
Right.
And I'm like, and the Black community cannot fix racism, because racism is not the Black community's fault.
Yeah.
We didn't create it. And we're not going to be the ones to solve it. And so people are like, why do white people or people of all these different privileges have to take up this cause? And I'm like, well, it's your system. I'm like, it's your system. And I'm like, maybe you're not the one who created it, but you're the one who's changing the parts out. You're the one who's making sure that the upkeep is going. Like, you're the one providing constant maintenance to this system. I'm like, so you don't have to take responsibility. Like, God, you don't have to apologize for slavery. And if you were born in 1999, you don't have to apologize for Jim Crow or for the civil rights. And really, I don't want an apology at all, because an apology is not going to erase the things that I want. And like, you don't even have to say this is my fault. Like, white guilt is white people's problem. And I'm tired of white people being like, why does the Black people want me to apologize? And I'm like, we have never asked for that. Don't give a shit about your apology whatsoever. Just stop voting for racists. That's it. Just stop voting for racists.
And putting them in statues and shit.
Yeah. I guess I have a couple other things on the list. I guess that's not just the only thing.
There's a few things.
Yeah, but I'm like the average person who doesn't want to march in the street. I'm like, literally just don't vote for someone who's got bad policies. I'm like, that's literally the least you can do. Just do that.
And maybe also work towards not having as much voter suppression. And some other things. Because like voting, I mean, I want to say, yeah, don't vote racist, but like, let's not pretend like there's not, you know,
I know
ridiculous amounts of voter suppression in this nation that are the reason why there are so many close calls that don't go in the favor of non-racist, or well, I'm not saying non-racist, like policymakers or legislators, because like, let's be honest, like if they're, I think that white people also do have to acknowledge that we all have implicit bias, and so like even the liberal side of that is still not going to be awesome because it's just another probably white rich Democrat. So I mean, yes, it's not Trump or it's not McConnell, and like yeah, fuck those people. But like you know the white liberals aren't the answer either, and so I think there's a lot of things to work on when it comes to voting too. Like don't vote for racists, but also think about the fact that maybe our two-party system doesn't benefit anybody anyway.
Amazing. Also, maybe vote for things other than president, like state and local elections. Matters so much
district
more.
Attorney, like every you were like, what does it?
Even
anyway.
if you're not going to vote for Trump or Biden, there are other people on that list that need to be voted for. And when people are always like, man, I fucking hate these politicians. They're like, I'm tired of these politician dynasties. I'm tired of voting. And I'm like, my personal opinion right around now is anyone who's been in power for longer than 15 years and has shown no improvement for their local communities. I don't care what your policies are. I don't care what you present yourself on or what your beliefs are. You have to go because I'm not. And politicians, people who have been in power for 20 or 30 years, do not deserve to be forgiven for things. Like you can forgive them as an individual. Say the first 20 years, like they're like, I'm so sorry, I spent half of my career voting against your rights. I've changed. And I'm like, beautiful, get the fuck out of the way. And I'm like, you don't deserve forgiveness when this is a job. I can't just mess up my job for 20 years and when they go to fire me be like, I'm a changed person. Because it shouldn't matter. But I think the biggest thing with all these people, and we're seeing it so much, and personally this is how I feel about Charles Booker in Kentucky. I don't live in Kentucky. I'll never live in Kentucky. But Charles Booker is on my top 5 list of state elections. I just feel like if there's a person in their community who goes, I could do a better job than this, I urge that person to run for their office. And I'm like, run for city council. And I'm like, totally do it. And I'm like, you hate the person who's in there now. They don't do anything that you want them to do. They don't have the beliefs. Like, even if I disagree with you, if you want average people who have experienced your life and know your problems to be in charge, then it's got to be you. And I'm like, if there's so many people, and maybe they didn't go to college and maybe they haven't had like executive positions, but they're educated in their local laws, they know how it affects them personally and the people in their community. And I'm like, those are the people who should be running for office. Like teachers, like I'm about to say Amy McGrath. That's not who I'm talking about. And now I can't remember her name. I actually don't really like Amy McGrath, so I'm sorry for even bringing her up. And I'm like, but people like AOC and like Ilana Moore, even though Ilana Moore, like, they are college educated women and everything, but there are people who are like, those are just average people. And I'm like, yes, absolutely, 100%. Bartenders and people who own their own landscaping business and people who have been teachers, those are the people who should be public servants. People who have already made a lifestyle out of servicing their communities. So like, fuck Obama and Trump and Mitch McConnell and all those other people, like, just get them out of the way. You had your turn, and maybe we'll fuck it up, Maybe we don't have all the answers, but I just don't understand why you have to be the one to screw us over. Like, I can screw myself over just fine.
Like, run for office, and also let yourself lose and fucking run again.
Exactly.
Especially if you're running against somebody who you're probably gonna lose to anyway. Just like fucking keep running.
Go to every city council meeting. If you're just going there to be angry and you just want your voice to be heard and you don't want it to be a void, even though, who knows like what void lies between our city council members, like, then go there. Talk about how you really want that street light. Like, that's a thing you have like a voice to go and present yourself at, and I like would urge people to go to those things that feel like they don't matter.
Go to them. Yeah. And also, to add to that, this is a little bit of a segue to something else. Also, like, to the interfaith communities too, and I think that they, like, those people, the people who are involved in interfaith communities, especially Christianity, those communities need to be doing more, and also that's a good outlet for change, for if people want to show up and try to change their communities. I think a lot of times churches are like, we're not political. You're fucking political. Stop pretending like the fucking church isn't political.
Who said that?
Yeah, like, okay, anyway. It's just, I think that, some people are like, well, I don't know if I want to show up to, this weird policy meeting, and I don't know how to do it, I don't know how to talk. Like, get your interfaith communities involved. Like, obviously, like, that's not going to be, it's not going to flip over, but I was, especially when it came to our memorial even, like the particular interfaith communities that came, I was really encouraged by, but I had other friends who said, my church didn't do shit, or all they did was post a black tile and move on, and they didn't even talk about it at church the next Sunday.
Go to a different church. Move to a church that did do that.
I mean, yes, but also you could also try, if you really do have love for the community, try to change their mind. I don't think the right thing is always to go to a new church. Yes, go to a new church, but also maybe stick with the old one.
See if you can change it.
And see if you can change it. Yeah. Talk to the people you love. Talk to the people that you've been in fellowship with for years. And say, hey, let's talk about this. Let's have productive dialogue. Let's change our congregation, because whether or not people admit it, they vote based off what their churches say. They vote based off, a lot of what they do, comes from their interfaith communities.
Well, that's one of the reasons I was so glad to see so many people from the interfaith community come out to the memorial. Like, it's not something I expected. And it was really, I feel like it was really, Jackie's the one who spearheaded that. I wouldn't say that I really ever looked to religious organizations or religious groups to be allies, but it's not because like just personal hang-ups and everything like that. Yeah. And probably if Jackie had asked permission, even though like it's a good thing that she didn't, because we were all in this as equals, and she was like, this is something that I want to happen, so this is I'm gonna reach out to them, I'm gonna ask them to come. I would have disagreed with it, and I would have been wrong. It was amazing to have them out there, and it was people of like all ages, all demographics, like people bringing their kids. They brought their study groups and everything, and I was like, I would have just been pissy about your existence here, but you're doing exactly the things I've asked of people to do. Like, you're putting yourself out there, you're centering it around not just like the way you gather as a group, but the things that you're learning. And I'm like, is that not what I've been asking for communities the entire time? So now I'm at this point where I'm so used to just being like, do more. And now I'm like, oh, wait a second. Oh, you're doing it. And I was like, it's a really good feeling to know that maybe I'm not going to ever center these communities in my life, but to know that these issues still matter. And I feel like it's just a beautiful thing.
Cool.
It is beautiful. But yeah, no, they need to step up, and I think that there are some that are. Lisa Harmon, First Church, they've fucking stepped up. You know what I mean? And I have had my qualms with different interfaith communities, but there are ones that can lead the way for the others, and show that yes, those don't you don't have to be mutually exclusive from like real social justice. If you want to talk about social justice, you want to talk about like being as Jesus was, like fucking walk the fucking walk. like stop pretending like Jesus is all about being pro-life only, and Jesus then not even giving a shit about pro-life when people are actually existing.
I mean, the thing about conservative fanfic Jesus that I don't understand is, I mean, I read the Bible and they're like, Jesus hates you, and I'm like, okay, old rich white man that makes a lot of money off of taxes. I'm like, last time I checked, if Jesus came back this day, he would be here in this building with us and not hanging out at the conservative convention. Yeah. And I'm like, y'all were not his crew. He wasn't hanging out with you. I'm doing that wrong. So I want everyone to like who's like part of these communities, like the interfaith communities, to channel my favorite Bible story and to sit on the church steps together, talk about what they can do as individuals to help dismantle the system of white supremacy, braid the whip, and break into the temples. And I'm like, that is what is expected of the religious community right now. And I'm like, do what Jesus taught us to do.
Exactly. Preach that.
I will. Amen. And
then we might have to wind down here a bit.
Okay. Yes.
We've already been going for a bit, like 40 minutes.
Cool.
Any last questions?
Well, do we have any comments or shit over there? I forgot to say that we're taking comments as part of it.
Oh shit, yeah.
So.
Oh, I should also talk about Juneteenth
Oh.
maybe for a minute.
Oh yeah, let's
that's
talk
important,
about what's
yeah.
coming up.
Oh yeah. So recently, a few of us went to the Black Heritage Foundation of Yellowstone County's. Basically, they had a board meeting. They were talking about whether or not they wanted to do Juneteenth or not, and how to do it in a safe manner with social distancing. They will be hosting it, and we've been helping them organize some stuff with social media and with entertainment. But it will be next Saturday, June 20th, from 1 to 5. Official programming's gonna start at 3, but we're gonna have stuff going the whole time. And it's gonna be a place for celebration, but also, especially in a place like Billings, education. I think not a lot of people know what Juneteenth is.
Can you say what Juneteenth is? Speaking of that.
Juneteenth is the African Americans' celebration of the true end of slavery.
Yeah.
Because after the Emancipation Proclamation, Abraham sent all the blacks to Mexico. Lincoln. After he was. Just a fun fact about Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
But it took a while, almost up to a decade, to actually make sure that all of the slaves were actually free. The last place was in Texas, just because people who just were like, you're gonna come in Texas and make me do this, and just people dying to go deliver the way, and just how long it took to get to all the parts of Texas. Juneteenth is the celebration of when all of the slaves were.
Slaves.
Yeah, the last slaves, technically, but the 13th Amendment.
Right.
And,
There's
like apprenticeship laws and Reconstruction and people who just kept doing slavery anyway,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have prison slave labor.
Yeah, but it's
Sure.
still the end of slavery as it was defined
Right.
then.
Right.
That's the celebration of Juneteenth.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be June 19th, but we're doing it on June 20th on the Saturday. Join if you can. We're also asking, just because the Black Heritage Foundation of Yellowstone County does sponsor this event. There's going to be sack lunches, but you can also bring your own food and coolers if you feel more comfortable. It's very mask friendly. We're trying to keep social distancing very on the forefront, but they are encouraging donations. And the Venmo, I think, is just like Black Heritage Foundation, and they're also going to be passing a hat at the event. But just to sponsor, hopefully, more events in the coming year, and we're hoping to do more stuff with them as a community action group, and kind of learn more about what they do throughout the year and try to support them as a community.
Cool.
Amazing.
Yeah, we might pass the hat on the show. We usually ask for donations, and lately we've been forwarding them, so probably just do that. So if you want to toss us $5 or $10 for the show today,
Beautiful. Give it to Black people.
yeah,
It's Black.
perfect. And I guess, are we ready for a break then? Do we have more to talk about? We're gonna bullshit later after the poetry and shit. So
Cool.
hang out, hang around, and we'll be back with who's going first.
Michael and Isaiah.
Michael, the Trash Gang. Michael and Isaiah are gonna do some poetry and noise, and then Bear is gonna do some storytelling. So
Awesome.
thanks everybody.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. This is the Trash Gang, aka Michael Birdinground and Isaiah Demontiney. Yeah. I don't know my friend's last name because I don't need to. But trash. They're the trash. I'm wearing this shirt. It says "Live Fast, Eat Trash." So I didn't do that on purpose at all. But you guys are awesome. Thanks, everybody. Give it up out there.
Take off your socks. Send us all of your virtual claps. Are we ready now? We're doing the thing. We're doing the thing as I do the thing. Yesterday was scary. Today was bad. And tomorrow's gonna be worse. Fires on the streets and in the eyes of those who ignited them. It feels like Mother Earth is simply but a hearse taking us from B to A. The skies are gray, but the view on our screens is worse. It won't go away. Apathy fueling the ammunition of the perpetrators. Murder and discrimination wafting into the eyes and the ears of the public. Becoming a trend, an opportunity to display but not to act. Feeding off of what normalcy has produced. Innocent victims lay below 6 feet, while killers walk freely on theirs. Silenced outcries of few, vocalized by millions. Into the homes and the hearts of murderers, echoing amongst armored vehicles and homemade gas masks alike. Thunder in the sky, dragging authority to its knees, slowly, yet relentlessly. Waves of men, navy blue, black, and white, marching in lines Adolf would approve of, blocking from the grass days of sunlight onto the lawns of family homes designed for care and love, into the homes of peacefully sleeping families, riddling the floorboards and the ceiling with holes, all the true horrors flooding into your neighbor's doorway. Thankfully not yours. You'll be safe, because you were born different, a different color. A place where skin color determines a life of struggle or privilege, where supremacists have power over human lives, where those who do not experience these problems ignore their existence entirely, where the public is manipulated into pedestals for racist dominance to thrive. I don't want to kill a cop. I don't want you to think that. I just want neighborhoods where they don't have to get called when the shit goes down. And I want a neighborhood exactly like that right next to it. And 3 more. Eventually a city, and a city next to that one. Eventually a nation. I don't want to read BuzzFeed articles about how great cannabis is for you, but know there are many colored people who will never see the outside of a barbed wire fence because of it. I don't want to see innocent black lives stolen. I don't want another mother's eyes to be weighed down by grief, but we can't get that here. So me and my friends are gonna start a new world. One where the bare minimum of care and respect will not be praised, but where it will be expected. One where any authority figure, if any, is well educated on the human mind and what it needs if manipulated or damaged. One where every person, no matter their color, is taken as a mother's child, a child's parent, a family member, and as a person. It's not utopia, but it can be close. At least close enough for now. And I really need your help. Nope. That's it for my segment. What? I don't know. I said my part was over. That was as far as it went. Yeah. Hello, audience.
What are you doing at home?
Everyone said we're doing great. Just now, a flood of messages came in.
You play
saying,
Fortnite?
Hey, we're doing great.
Talk about your shirt. This is a shirt I found on
You found that on your
You
floor?
thought it was a rug or?
there.
That's a sick shirt to find on your floor, though.
Oh yeah, it is.
It's the whole outfit. It's done.
Yeah. All right. Do you have another?
I do not.
Okay.
I was told I was going to do a poem.
All right.
A
We'll
poem.
go on a quick break then and be back in just one fucking second.
Played in the music.
I thought you were.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. Hope you got to catch that great conversation with Phil, Siesa, and Jana. I have next to me Bear, who's going to tell us some stories. Please be sure to listen up and ask great questions. Bear is definitely a well of knowledge, and we're so thankful to have him here today. So, Bear, why don't you take it away? Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Bear. A lot of you may have seen me at Kirk's Grocery. I started doing my little stories somewhere last year, and they were actually stories, and now I do comedy. Now, I used to tell stories, and just with the trash can here, my buddies, my bros, they would play noise background to a lot of my horror stories and whatnot, and so. And I was approached by this at the time that they wanted to start a lecture series about talking and blah blah, because I could ramble for good hours. But at the same time, I actually tried to take it serious. I wanted to really like start putting a lot of talking into what I did, and because comedy is fun and all. But I always felt I was never good at it. So I had this little idea. It was that I'll tell some of my stories and just kind of it started off as poetry at first, like because we had open mic nights and whatnot. So I started just kind of cramming all my stuff together, and then just I came up with this, and I tried it out, and then I had a set called Anger where I went through all these environments that you immerse yourself into, like atmosphere and the toxicity of work, and how that kind of follows you outside the workplace, and how just being what you're represented as how you look, how it just kind of affects you or me, I guess specifically, and why, and how like anger management worked. And now this was a success. These were things that I feel these are my real work. And I really had nothing planned tonight because I was contacted just a while ago about this, and I just never really thought of anything. But we've had a protest here, and I did a speech at this gathering that these ladies put on. And it was really amazing for a while to go to these things because you had all these people drawn to it. They had all these people come and hang up all these pretty pictures that they worked hard on, and it's not just writing a message. It's a lot of these people really put work into them, and it showed just kind of how people are deeply involved and how passionate they were about this. And I know that was really great because we felt at the same time like how the interview earlier was. We kept thinking that we were gonna get oppressed by this and people are gonna come rip it down, and and I was there like almost every day trying to look all scary and trying to make sure none of that crap happened. We've had some drive-bys, and not in a bad way, but like people just want to call us the N-word or record us yelling and saying all kinds of crap or give me the stare down. That's what the kind of topic we want to stay within right now. Because we all had it, especially as a Native American, how I grew up out my life here in Billings. I've never lived or came from anywhere else. I've always grown up here, and growing up as a Native, being the only Native kid in class, being the only different colored skin, and I didn't know I was Native until maybe I was 6 years old. I didn't understand anything about race. It was just a word to me. But growing up, I had people speaking different languages and taking me to powwows and sun dances, or we'd be in a lodge and they'd be burning things and dancing, and I'd just be sitting in the corner like, it's just that was something that was my life all the time growing up. And I didn't understand crap. I just sat there and loved to eat the free food that they bring. So growing up, I didn't grow up on the res. I got moved off because they wanted me to, not have to live on the res. They wanted me and my brother to grow up. Out here, it's different, and try to get involved in this society. So, I went to a school called Ponderosa. Growing up and all that, still color never mattered to me. I didn't give a crap what it was. It never occurred to me too. I had to go through speech therapy because I was so badly broken in my languages. Because like I said, I've had natives speak to me all day, all the time, no matter what. I didn't understand it, but like most of the time, if they told me to go, I knew that word. Or if I was in trouble, I knew that word. It just happened that way. Out here, I just kind of spoke backwards. I talk too loud, too quietly. I mumble. I do things. And so it was always just sort of a challenge. So me and my brother had to go speech therapy in classes and then had to just kind of mingle with these other kids, all these other students. So color still never a thing. And I always believe that maybe, that never has mattered because, I didn't learn about color and racism until maybe I was 13. Yeah, within that time, I've had like Martin Luther King Day, any holiday that represented a different, color, just let's talk about Columbus Day for a little bit. Like when I was brought that attention, you know, I was told that, you know, people came here from Europe and they settled and we're all peaceful in this magic little land. And we shared with each other, you know.
Thanksgiving.
That was what I was told. And so like Martin Luther King Day, all the kids would have to draw something with me. They would tell the teacher how they would spend their day with someone like me. And I had no idea why all the kids were picking me. And I understand, but they all scribbled me in the color black, because I guess that was as close as I could get, you know. And I understand. And then these kids started calling me native. You're native. You're native. And I was, at the time, I didn't know what the hell they were saying. I was upset. I told my grandma, they keep calling me a native. And she's like, well, that's what you are. And I understand this, you know, like it started bugging me even more, and I didn't understand that until that's when I started developing that I have a color, a race, a culture, a tradition, subjects. You know what I am is then they start putting me into other classes with cultural stuff and asking me questions like, you know, do I hunt or do I dance? Do I know anything about beading? You know, and I don't know what the hell that was. And as I got older, that's why I started learning more about it. Growing up here outside of school, the streets I lived on, they weren't too bad. But I didn't really understand racism again. I mean, I played with the kids one day. They would like me, and we sure play Cowboys versus Indians a lot. Guess who was the Indian? And, you know, like just growing up young around here, I experienced that sometimes I wasn't allowed at certain people's houses. And I didn't know why. I thought maybe it's because maybe it was dirty or whatever. I don't know. But some parents just did not like their kids hanging out with me and say, hey, this kid can't be playing with you. Can't come in my house, my yard, all that. But here they still play with me. The kids will still play with me. But when it was time to go hang out at their house, I wasn't allowed. Never understood this point of view. Never did. And I kind of just grew up. I don't have best friends from growing up when I was young. I don't have friends from that era. Like, you know, it just was a good old high five and see you around, you know. It just kind of moved on from there. And then I started understanding racism as I got older. Now that I'm older, I'm not a child, so people start calling me things. I'm supposed to celebrate things. And I had teachers trying to make me do things. Like, for one, like they wanted me to like paint Native American art. That was one thing that was like the big keystone when it came to me growing up. Like, oh, this guy can run fast, he can run long, you know, we should put this guy out for track. And that was one of the first things I was asked him. He's like, hey, you're Native American, right? And I'm like, yeah. Are you a runner? Yeah, you know, so and my asthma-ridden ass tried to, you know, go out for track. Didn't last very long. I ran a good mile though on nonstop, but when I got to the end of it, dropped and threw up for a bit, and then I had to start taking a little more care of myself with inhalers. But there was that one thing about art. I was really good at art. I'm really good at drawing and stuff like that. All the other kids, you know, they would draw whatever the hell they want. Everyone would make beautiful flowers and pictures and murals and landscapes. And here, when I did something weird, I was really good at flowers, and then I was really good at just weird shit, you know, like, it's like, why is that guy got a skull? Well, he decapitated, you know, his enemy, and he now is wearing it as his head, and he's dragging his body around as a trophy. And she's like, okay. How about we try something different? I'm like, yeah. So I see that you're Native American, and just grab like a stack of books and just kind of slide it towards me and kind of flip out to the first thing she sees. And I'd be like, all right, so what are you? I'm like, what kind of Indian are you? The good kind? What? And she's like, no, what tribe? I'm like, Crow. Okay, so kind of flip through that book, and then she would show me a bunch of Crow style designs and all this, and then she wanted me to draw dancers and all that. So here I got in my head like, oh, I got one. Sun dancers that pierce their chest. You know, they put willows through here, they tie it off, and they have like they kind of hang themselves and then until they break. So I drew something a little gory like that. That was gory. But it was real. It was real tradition. And she kind of opened up my sketchbook and looked at it, and then she kind of closed it. So I said, you having trouble at home? I'm like, no, that's sun dancing. I'm like, it's a little bit much, isn't it? A little graphic. Don't you want to like draw shields and teepee designs? And that was always something that she pressed on me. And she wasn't a bad lady, though. Not at all. She died though some time back, but at the same time, she always influenced me. But here it was like, as encouraging as you sound, you know, you're also just encouraging me to be a stereotype. I got that, you know, maybe I'm not very close to my tradition as much as I would like to. You know, I don't have people show me things. I have friends at Sundance and Smudge or Fast, but you know, I'm not as close as I would like to be. But that was always pushed on me. And it was never pushed on to me by my own family. It was always pushed upon me by white people. And because they always wanted to see the next Native American artist and whatever. You know, that was always something that happened growing up. You know, so like, hey, you're Native this, so how naturally I have like this resilience, this runner, and so they would always go on about this. And there was always that nickname, Chief, like oh, you know, like everyone has a little nickname, but then when it came to another Native American, it was Chief. I got big though after a while. I got larger, and then I became Bear, Black Bear. It was a joke at first. I was the smallest in my family at the time because I was so skinny, and then I just kind of filled out. And my brother's bigger. You saw my other brother here; he's pretty big too. We're all just big guys, and so that just kind of stuck with him. So growing up though, I wanted to be a cop. I wanted to be in the army, but asthma has it, I can't. You know, it isn't easy being wheezy half the time, and I just can't do it. Like I can run, I'm big, I exercise, I work hard, but I just can't keep up with my oxygen. So, you know, like I couldn't do these things. So, you know, I just kind of went down a bad road for a while. I started, you know, I waited till I was 18 to actually start drinking and smoking, do all that crazy crap, and, you know, live with the stereotypes. And ever since growing up, too, everyone always tells me, like, you guys got this for education. You guys got per capita. You got free healthcare and all that stuff. This crap always hit me all my life. Even if I chimed into a conversation like, oh, you know, like, my doctor said this will cost this, and then I'll say something, and then, like, well, you're going to get it for free. Well, and I'm like, well, not really. I can't go to a hospital here. I have to go back to the res. Yeah, well, it's still free. Yeah, but yeah, I had to take all my, just fucking free healthcare isn't quality care. All right, there's a difference. You know, like I can go up there and they're just probably gonna give me a bunch of ibuprofen and tell me to walk it off. You know, last time I went and saw a doctor, I had pneumonia. And he kept saying, you sure you're not on meth? I'm like, no, I can't breathe. Well, it's probably your asthma. You probably just drank and passed out in the cold. And these are the same questions I was getting asked. And this guy was like a foreign doctor, one of those that travel around, had a thick accent, and he would just assume I was just either high or smoking and all that was on meth. And I said, I just can't breathe. Well, so what do you want? I just wanted to know what's wrong with me. Well, we're not going to give you anything higher than what ibuprofen can give you. I'm like, I'm not asking for drugs, but whatever. So got my cough syrup and ibuprofen after spending maybe 4 hours and missing work, and then drove all the way back. And then I went to sleep, and then I almost died in my sleep. Had to go to the hospital here. Guess what? I had pneumonia. Wow, what a big goddamn surprise. Shoved a tube down my throat and helped me breathe. And so I had to tell, and it was an emergency, so I sent this to my tribe that, you know, I had an emergency. And all they sent back to me was like, well, did you try to drive here? Didn't you try to come back here? Didn't you? And I'm like, yes, I did, and all this. And they're like, well, we're not going to pay for your health care because you can just drive all the way to Crow. Well, I was dying in my sleep. I'm not even able to drive. Well, don't you have a friend or whatever? There's a transit that drives from Billings to here. And it was just an excuse over and over. And it says either keep fighting it or have to pay for it. Now, per capita is a fun little thing. People just don't understand that part. I heard the greatest fucking thing in my life is some woman was bitching. She's like, I don't see why my taxes go to you people. I'm like, what do you mean? Well, what's that per cap you guys get every couple months? Well, that's treaties. Those are things that you guys are drilling on our land, and we get a share of that. That's how it works. Your taxes don't go to me. Well, I'm pretty sure they do. You know, I'm like, well, I'm not on welfare. You know, I make my money and I do this. And she goes, well, you know, you guys are making probably $14 an hour. Your casinos. This isn't Nevada. No, fucking, the only casino down there, a 16-year-old's allowed to walk in and have a soda. There's no alcohol, it's a dry res, you know, and then there's always these assumptions. growing up that I have that. That maybe my tuition was paid, but the rest of it wasn't. I had to bust my ass getting the rest of my degree. And that was always something growing up. There was always a little stereotype. And I painted myself as an easy target. You know, loving my little outfits and chains and my jingle jangles, and then being Native American. You know, so now a lot of times I'm this big walking faggot to a lot of other guys, but guess what? You ever want to get beat up by a big faggot? You know, like so I've always been aggressive growing up. I got into a lot of fights. I've always had to grow to defend myself because I get all this dumb nagging crap, or I'm not allowed at some other kid's house. I can't date a lot of white women because of this, because they're like, oh, is he like an alcoholic, or what are they making you eat weird stuff? Like, it was always some weird shit. And if we break up, then they call me the N-word. And it was always crap like this. Like, I don't know, it was just kind of having to grow up like this. You know, so dating was always a hard thing. Just being in a general area for me is a hard thing, because I stick out just like that, you know? Like, I'm just there. I'm the big guy in the pit around here. I'm that guy. I don't even do nothing. Here goes, you're that guy. And I'm just like, I don't know where he's from, but I'm just like, hell yeah, I am. How you doing, buddy? He goes, hey, you beat up that guy. Oh, sorry. I don't remember that. But, you know, like, you're this guy. I seen you at this concert. I've always been around. And the only stereotype is that I'm a big alcoholic. True. Anyways, I'm enthusiastic about alcohol. I've toned down now, though. I mean, I like collecting Skull bottles and different breweries, and I've even made my own beer. I made a fermenter in welding class. Well, at the time, it was called a deep fryer, but I made a fermenter out of a soda keg. I stripped it down. I made my own blueprints. I made this. I made a keg. Yeah, so I have fun drinking. But at the same time, every time I go out to a party, though, it's like, hey, Barry, you want this, you want that, and then they assume I'm gonna get wild by the end of the fucking night, and they haven't even really met me. Like don't give them all the beer and blah blah blah. I get the joke, but after a while, the joke kind of gets stale. And so, like I said, I kind of grew up aggressive. I've gotten into fights, but never when I'm drunk. It's hilarious. The only time I'm in trouble with the cops is when I'm sober. When I'm drunk, it's like I just get lucky and wander off while the cops are coming this way, and I just get home. A lot of time I was in anger management for a lot of my fighting, and this is for my last little thing, is that when I was being asked, like, would you do it again? And I'm like, hell yeah, that motherfucker had it coming, you know? Like, I didn't, like, lie, like, well, I feel bad. No, this guy was being a piece of shit. He followed me to my car, and I knocked him out. Well, why is that? Because he kept harassing me. He kept saying things, and so I'm not going to take it. And everybody in there cheered me on, like, whatever. She always tell me that's a red flag, because she tried to give me a diagnosis that I see myself as an enforcer, that I have to enforce my point of view around, like, and I'm just like, what does that mean? Well, if you don't like it when people pick on people, you interrupt, or you put yourself in that place and you try to enforce justice and this and that. I'm like, well, he's being a dick, or he's being racist. He shouldn't get to be like that. Yeah, but you can't be violent all the time. Whatever. So I went through this thing, and it was like 25 hours. And I have toned down since my young age. You know, I have a couple kids now. I'm raising, and, you know, I'm a great dad, I feel, sometimes. I don't know. They like to climb on me like I'm a jungle gym. But then people still ask me, like, oh, so what are you guys going to do? Like, you gotta raise them in culture and this and that. And you know, like, I don't know, because a lot of that stuff's not around anymore for me to actually to get into. Like I said, I'm not as close to my tradition as I want to be. You know, like, I don't have anybody to really name my kids or show them this way. And at the same time, they're not full-blooded anymore to be considered and be recognized by any tribe. My kids are half Hispanic, Assiniboine Sioux. They're also Blackfeet, and they're Crow. I'm half Crow and half Blackfeet, and their mom is Assiniboine and Mexican. But their quantum level, they're not enough to be recognized. And that's okay to me. And people are like, why not? Don't you want the benefits? No. The benefits, fine, yeah, sure, great, benefits. But I don't live every per capita. I don't need that free healthcare. I don't need this stuff. I work hard enough to bring my kids up in a world like this that, you know, like I can take care of them. I don't need to rely on these things. And people think I'm making a mistake. Like, no, my daughter doesn't need this. And, you know, like stuff happens and we're not together. And then the people want to bring that up again. Like, don't you want the best for your child? And I feel that I am giving the best for my child, no matter what. No matter if they're full quantum in blood versus if they are just what? What does that mean? There's an area I've never understood. If I'm not Indian, then what am I? What am I to you as a person? You know, like this and that, yeah, we have all this stuff going on lately. So let's bring it up to a little more modern. I said this at my speech. I had a guy I work with. He kind of was getting really mouthy. And I dealt with this stuff back in college during Standing Rock when we were all going about water and stuff. And so people would always have to say like, hey, Bear's probably got an opinion. Let's fucking bother him about it. Like being me and two other natives in my class. And a lot of these guys, being a welder, that's a very conservative job. You know, like everyone wants to go to the they go to the pipelines, and you know they were all for that pipeline. They were all for it. That's why they were all there. Me, I wanted a good job and I wanted to make art. And so they're like, hey, what's Bear's opinion on this? Like, what do you think about Standing Rock? Aren't your people out of line? And I'm like, first of all, they are my people, but that's not my tribe, you know. It's because I have to always explain tribes and nations to other people. And my tribe, I'm a traitor to a lot of other natives. I have to pretend I'm Blackfeet if I want to hang out with Cheyenne. So it's a little more complicated as you get down that tree. See, like, so I always fight these guys. It's like, well, you guys you're on their land. That's their thing. We're not even on their land. Blah, blah, blah. Like, well, are you out there? You know, I can't go. I can't be out there. I have kids. I have school. And these guys are just kind of going on and off about it. And then until I got loud and angry about it, now I'm being that belligerent native. I'm being a libtard. And I explained to them, like, you know, like, you guys are using, like, are any of these people shooting at them? They have weapons. They're getting hosed down in the fucking cold. And then they're just like, well, I don't know, it's just, you know, they don't have an answer for me. Though they all liked me as a person. Thought I was funny. I was a good beer drinker. You know, I had great ideas. That was all I was known for with these guys. I was just like them, but, you know, I had different views. Natives have different views. We have this thing I call the tribal trade. I make on accident eye contact with another native outside the window. He'll see me, come inside, and he'd be like, hey, brother, and I'm like, oh shit, hey, how you doing? And then he'll go down the whole thing like, hey, who's your grandpa, who's your dad, you know, who's your mom, who's your grandma, hey, what tribe are you, where are you from, were you born, were you on the county, or are you off the res, you know, this and that. And I'm just like, I'm Crow. Oh, fuck you then. And then they'll either walk off, or if they were Crow too, then we'd be like, hey, high five. And then he'd be like, so can you like get me a bottle? It always ended that way. So even natives have their own different opinions. I call it tribalists. People who want to bring up their own tribe. So, you know, I have to put up with this crap. Then I got to put up with crap with people in the real world who just want to segregate me and say all natives are the same. So they all believe, you know, the pipeline and this and that. And so they want my opinion. They want me to get involved. And I don't know why, to embarrass me or something. So growing past that, you know, like, and then this recently happened. And it's not about natives, but at the same time, we all share the same ideas. So it involves natives. It's about, you know, police brutality. I was there because, you know, we all saw it live. Guy died. Couldn't breathe, and he just sat there like, you know, he was doing nothing wrong. So they complained about it, and this kept going on for weeks. And then during the COVID, trucks weren't coming back in time to our company because, you know, natives were doing checkpoints, and they weren't allowed to. So this is what this guy was complaining about. He wanted to complain about what other people were doing. And how he said it was always, fucking natives or fucking Indians are doing this. Now, he's not a racist. I always thought he was just stupid. He's not racist. He's just dumb because what he's about to say to me is just stupid. I said, well, good for them, then. Fucking don't go through there. Yeah, but we're not making money because he can't get here. And I was like, well, that's understandable. But at the same time, these tribes and it's not my tribe, it's that tribe. They have their own rules and laws. My tribe's a dry res. They have different rules. Some other tribes aren't. So there's always different things. But he started complaining. He started going off about throwing rocks and stuff like that. And it was just all talk at first. I didn't give a shit. I kept working. I kept stacking my boxes. And then he goes and says, well, I should know because I know some Indians. And I'm just like, and that's when I started listening a little more. And he's complaining to another coworker about it. And he goes, there's good Indians and then there's bad Indians. And I was just, okay, so what? What are you trying to say? And he goes, well, I'm just saying, I know some Indians. And I'm like, so what? Well, I'm just saying, my family is 30% or 70%. So fucking what? You want to do this by yourself? Whatever, Bear. You can act like a fucking asshole. I'm like, why? Am I being a bad Indian? He wandered off and did his own little fucking thing. But what pissed me off about the conversation was the other guy. He was like, well, it is what it is, and just kind of wandered off. First off, I'm mad at this motherfucker because it sounds like he's trying to give me an excuse to why he's able to complain about Native Americans. He feels that he is so well endowed with his family or culture or whatever, that he knows so much about natives that he can give me a reason to complain about them. It's already going to make you look bad. You're already going to look like a fucking racist asshole. Now, what made me mad the most is when that guy said it is what it is. Why is that so fucking normal? It's like every fucking year someone is getting murdered or killed or trespassing shit. We're always being wrapped up into these politics about someone doing something that they're not supposed to be doing. And once we do something about it, we're being assholes, and it always plays around. It runs through the same thing. It's normal. It is what it is. It's always the normal fucking thing. We have to always be fucking, it's always the same bullshit that we're brought to. It's like, hey, yeah, he's a racist asshole, so it is what it is. Native lands are being stolen. It is what it is. The next person is being called a nigger. It is what it is, and we're supposed to be normal to this stuff. And it's like people like me. It's like I'm tired of hearing this shit. I didn't like what fucking Sunshine said, and boy, I corrected him. And then later on, he got his hand crushed. Not my fault, but you know what? We're gonna go past that, and I won't get into it deeply. But he had it fucking coming, and I ain't gonna feel bad for it. But he wasn't racist. He's very fucking ignorant. And it is what it is a very fucking ignorant thing to say. Oh yeah, it is what it is. That's how life is. You try to grow, but someone wants to make you feel like shit and oppress yourself and, put you back in your place. And so let's all wrap this back together. As growing up as a Native American, I didn't understand what racism was until people were telling me I can't date their daughters. I'm not allowed to play with your kids. And as I grow older, I'm a little different. And I shouldn't be dressing like this. I shouldn't be acting like this. I shouldn't be drinking. I should be in traditions. I should be in culture. I should be embedded with my people. And that as much as I want to, as I say, it's where people want to put me. They want to place me in these things. I got a degree, and they still want to place me on the pipeline. And if I'm not for it, I'm an asshole and I'm un-American. And I heard somewhere that Native Americans got to prove that they're the most Native because of quantum, and that they're the most American because we are from here. And so this is why this shit drives me. These rallies we did, these things that these ladies put on for me. Like I said, I can't do it. I'm not that smart, but I'm the enforcer. I guess I will help in any way I can and draw people and rally behind us. And that was what my speech was about. It was just, bringing people together. I wanted people to listen and understand that these ladies, they brought something here. People can come to this. They have speakers and everything, and they're trying so hard, and I feel it's not loud enough. I feel that we need to be angrier about it. And I can't be violent, obviously, and that was the message I was sending that fucking day, is that we're not there to be violent with people. That's not what it's supposed to be. We're here to send a message to all these ugly people. I gotta see that fucking day. Because, you know, when people ask me what's gonna happen to my kids, it's not gonna fucking be this. They're not gonna be living here under one, if they're an Indian or not, if they're not real enough for this, or dying under the knee of our fucked up government. We will fucking rise above this. Thank you.
Dance it out. Dance it out. All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. Big round of applause for Bear here. I'm sure you're clapping as well. Thanks again, Bear. Thank you. We're going to cut to a short break, and then all of us are going to come and just kind of shoot the breeze and talk about what's on our minds. Stay with us. We'll see you soon. Cool. Fuck it. Yeah.
It's not no one
That means, but let's go for it.
All right. We are golden. What's up, everybody?
Hi.
Yo!
Yeah.
Yo.
All of us are sitting together and speaking together now. Yeah, whatever. So, I don't know, we could start with like nice, light topics.
Some
like
niceties.
TV shows you've been watching or music you've been into.
Hate 'em all.
Or we could get right to some meat and talk about like more race, capitalism, bullshit stuff.
I have a brief aside about Scooby-Doo, if I can be allowed that.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the recent renditions of Scooby-Doo, so the reason why Scooby can talk is because he's a descendant of the ancient Sumerian Anunnaki aliens. And I just think that everybody needs to know that, but that's about it.
Cool.
Yeah. This is just a fun fact. Scooby-Doo's an alien.
I'm into Sumerian alien shit.
The Anunnaki, that's some interesting shit right there.
Talk about the Nephilim.
Mm-hmm. And Thoth's green tablets, or emerald tablets.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
What about those?
They're like, they're supposed to be like the source, like Thoth is supposed to be like one of the Anunnaki aliens, and he came down and he like made like emerald tablets that like got like, you know, the history of like, they're like the theory of it all and like all these universal truths, and some of them have like technically been deciphered and everything, so they're like, it's a whole mess, but it's supposed to be like the basis of what all modern day religions are off
Nice.
of.
Yeah.
And so they just made that canon Scooby-Doo lore.
Cool. Perfect.
Well, that was a long fact about Scooby-Doo. Holy crap. I went somewhere and then it was like Scooby-Doo. Fucking there we are.
There we go.
Dude, what you know about Scooby-Doo?
Fucking not a lot.
much.
I just like that cartoon. And then, you know, I'm just now tired of seeing it.
I like the brown dog.
I like Brown Dog.
Oh man, my grandma cried at Scooby-Doo when she took us. It was like the first one that was live action. And I think they like said shit, and then I don't fucking know what was in that movie, but she like cried and dragged us out halfway through. And I like went back and watched it last year, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, where did that happen? Was it like some weird joke I didn't get at 8? Probably.
It was the weed jokes.
Maybe.
How dare they make Shaggy a pothead?
I know.
He just had schizophrenia.
Not just Shaggy, the dog too.
The dog wasn't real. He was just like all in Shaggy's head, and everyone just played along with it because Shaggy was just kind of maybe had some problems he had to deal with. That's why-
Excuse me, he's an alien. I've established this already.
Nuts. This is what we're starting with.
Well, it's hard to follow a fucking bear's story, man. That was heavy shit.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was really good.
That's what I meant by like, usually a lot of that stuff is straight up poetry, but I have a hard time memorizing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a lot of garage bands, and so I always have these guys play some music, and I just run it down and I'll just sing or whatever. But here, to actually just write something and have to do all that stuff to memorize it is just hard.
Mm-hmm.
So poetry was so hard because I just didn't want to always have to pull out my phone and do it. And I talk so much. My mom was like the biggest talker, and I never really knew her until one day I got to hang out with my mom. That woman can go for a couple hours. I remember riding in the back of a truck, and she's like talking, and then I passed out and wake up, and then I make eye contact with my sister, and she's like, "You weren't paying attention, huh?" I'm like, "What?" And then she goes, "Huh, Johnny? Huh?" And then my grandma got mad, like, "James, just shut the fuck up. You're talking too much." She goes, "Nuh-uh, I got a lot to say." Anyways, so Johnny, and she just kept going, and I just didn't even know where she was. And so I guess that's where I somehow just got that from her, my rambling and just going off. And so a lot of these things I write, I can write thousands of poetry. I can write thousands of fucking things. And on here, I will just not be able to just fucking say it. And so when they started giving me these shows, I wanted to start, trying to do this. I know my stories because I know how to tell a story. And a lot of this stuff is real stuff in my life. Quit nodding at each other. And so when writing, all I have, like literally, here, I'll show you right now. All I have, this is my set tonight. Anything about Scooby-Doo?
That's it. Can I read it?
At me next time.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Read your magician's.
This is my outline.
Open up about growing up native, how the ideal was to stay with my zone from people pushing me to do art and act a certain way. Stereotypes, being native today, and why the rally I'm drawn to defend myself and stand for others.
And that's all I had in mind.
Yeah.
Like,
how you like connect all those things and expound upon them is incredible.
Yeah.
Like to go in that like just with an outline of something and be able to like
Flesh it out.
Put it in such a powerful way.
it's because I already know it. I already feel this crap.
Yeah.
Like, I experienced it. I didn't just make it up in my head. That's how what I mean by songwriting is when you song, you gotta get creative. Okay, so when I write songs now, I have it's just a story I've told. And so this is what this is. I already know this stuff. This is why it's an outline. So there's nothing I have to memorize. There's nothing I need to say because I already have felt it, understand. Like, and it's fucked up to say this because I like being oppressed. It makes me feel more like I'm being challenged, like, fuck yeah. Push me down, see what happens, see what's gonna happen. I love being like I'll slap on my vest that has like a picture of a KKK member being hung from a tree, or beating up an alt-right member and all that, and I wear this, and I'm like, go ahead, if you're gonna oppress me, you don't like me, I'm just gonna find a bigger reason for you to not like me. And so, like, all my stories, it's just that I've went through this crap. I felt this all my life, and so when this happened, every day I kept coming to these guys' gatherings as I got more pumped up. I kept thinking about it more, and then when we all got together, we're all outside, and we're all wearing black and masks and dressed up, and I'm just even more enthralled to become the thing I want to be. I become that warrior I never got to be. Like at mosh pits, when I get into band, like music, when I walk to that pit and there's just a circle, I'm just so I can't wait to get out there. I can't wait to get out there and move around and just slam shoulders with everybody. And so that's how what my work is like. Is I'll make an outline and I start talking about it. Then I remember things, and then I feel that moment again, like a song that I've once heard, and every time I hear this song again, I'm going to always dance the same, I'm always going to sing the same to it, and it's always going to bring back a memory. So these stories just come back to me like that. So yeah, I remember having to listen to my teacher tell me this. I remember I wasn't allowed to play with this kid. I wasn't allowed to date your daughter because they weren't into Native American people. It's like, I remember experiencing this stuff, and then the whole Standing Rock and all these dumb questions I was asked. And then remember that day I was out there with my big banner waving around in the hot sun melting, and half these bikers and militia wouldn't want to shake my hand, but I was offering it to them because out of respect, they want to yell in my face, they want to do this. So I feel that, so, and as my speech wasn't as loud as what I said tonight, I wish it was, because I haven't felt like a protest. I've never went out there and looked some asshole in the face who doesn't want me to be there, who's afraid that I'm going to throw rocks through his window. I never felt that, and then now I have it more in me, that I have more experience, I have that feeling now, and that's what drives me now even more to say this and say what I did, because I experienced it and I felt it.
Hell yeah.
Dope.
Well,
Down the line, dope.
But I definitely feel that like anger is like a motivator. Like there is something really like he's talking about when we were doing the memorial thing and everything, and Shane from Kirk's Grocery put out the PA system. Everyone's like, Siesa, do a speech, and I'm like, be wary of when you put a microphone in my hand. I was like, I have like a lot to say, and it was nice to just speak to a group of people and be like, this
Dude,
is
you
how I
made me
actually
fucking
feel.
cry. Like,
It's
that
not-
was the first time that I'd, like, actually cried.
It's a talent. but it's like what Bear is saying, like, you don't have to, it doesn't have to, it's not a speech, it's not even so much a story. I'm like, this is the
you.
life that I'm living.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so like if someone's like, I need you to talk to these people about how it feels to be under systemic oppression, I don't have to write like a point by point list. And I'm like, I literally, there's all of these stories like that, like all of these memories you have from your entire life, and it's like you just have to pick one, whichever one you feel like telling at the time, and all of them are the same story about like racism. But it's also like it like sometimes I feel bad about it, like it's a self-crit when I'm having fun at these types of things, when I'm like yes, and we're telling them off, and I'm like giving a speech and we're organizing, and I always felt bad, like, is this like what you want? Like, people will be like, oh, you just want to be a victim, you want to be a victim so bad, as if like oppression is a thing that I'm happy to have in my life. But it is nice to work against something. Well, actually, I don't feel like it's working against something. Like, I'm not so much working to dismantle white supremacy as I am working really hard for my own happiness and my ability to like live this life without obstruction. So I'm like, there's people, and I feel like this is like my biggest criticism of conservatives. I'm like, you spend your whole life rallying against things. You're anti this, you don't want this, you don't want this, you don't want this. You're always trying to take something away from somebody, when there's, on the other hand, I feel like I'm fighting for liberties I'm not trying to take anything away from anybody. I'm just trying to make sure that we all have access to the same things. But also, it's just nice to be mean to races. Like, I'm always like, I'm like on Facebook, and I'm like, time to go cyberbully some old people.
That reminds me, I called a guy an old white ballsack today.
Yes.
Oh, because like he has like a wrinkly forehead and he's bald, and like he was saying about how like he was calling all the protesters the N-word and monkeys running around, and like I had to do something.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
like,
fuck people who are so ignorant.
It's like, I could explain to you why this is wrong, or I could find. I feel like my version of trolling, because it is a release, is not coming up with concepts that I know are gonna make people mad. It's saying something that is true in the most disrespectful way you could possibly tell it to a person.
Don't you just like that too? You just like eat it up to like, yes, you go, yeah, go and get pissed off. You're getting mad, and you're just, it's so good.
But then I see it from the other hand, because I'll be like reading something, and I'm like looking at my phone like in the night, and I'm like, how did anyone have this opinion? And I'm like, yes, we're all terrible in the exact same way.
Right, yeah.
We're all doing the same things.
Yeah. One thing that stuck out to me about Bear's story was at your anger management classes, when someone told you that you felt like you were an enforcer, like, and that was somehow like a bad connotation, because you felt like you had to enforce justice. And that really kind of blew my mind of like, so the opposite of what she's saying is to stand by when I'm being oppressed, when somebody's like pushing my buttons and like trying to get me to like triggering that fight or flight response. So I'm supposed to just like say, okay, you're right, and not stand up for myself, like saying that being an enforcer of justice is bad.
Right.
That really kind of.
Well, yeah, when I was asked, like, do you regret, beating up that guy or getting into a fight with this guy? And I'm like, yeah, at the same time, violence is wrong. The first time I went to jail, I was young and stupid, and it was over a girl, and so I beat this guy up. And then, like at the same time when they asked me, if, do you regret that? And I'm like, no. I'm like, why not? Because fuck that guy. I mean, he was gonna just rub this in my face the rest of my life. And as I live on, I'm gonna be looking back on this time in my life. If I could have done anything about it, should I fought for it? What is my stance about it? It's like, no, I don't regret it. I mean, if I didn't fight for it, if I didn't feel like I'd done nothing to stop or prevent or do anything or tell this guy, he can't be talking shit to me, I would be feeling this for the rest of my life, this regret, this sting. And that's in any situation, like how we speak and how we talk to each other. Should I have told that woman I love her? Or should I have not fucking taken that last drink? Should I have not, fucking ran that red light and got those people hurt? It's like people are going to think about this stuff in life and wish that they did something different. And if they could do something different, then do something. And if not, let it go and not let it hurt yourself. So when this lady asked me that, I was like, no, because for a fact, I know I'm going to feel bad about it. It's not like I fucking killed this guy. It's not like I ruined his fucking life. He won, he did whatever. And, you know, and I moved on with my life. But here, I felt content with what happened. Even if it was stupid and violent, I paid a fee or whatever. But it opened a new world for me, and I moved on. I can't be a cop now because I had a record. I did all this, and I couldn't go in the army because of asthma. So I kept going. And then today's world, if I was a cop, then what? Where would I be? Am I your enemy now? I would be probably. You know, and I'd be getting mad at you saying it's my job.
I would talk shit about you.
Yeah, I would have to do this. I would be facing something else.
We would all still talk shit about
So when she told me in here, that's what made me mad is that, because if I see this other guy getting beat up, I'm going to be pissed off. Or if someone's calling someone, something else, and you're just not letting people live. You know, and they're not harming anybody. As long as you're not harming anybody, you have the right to live anything. I've always felt that I listen to everybody's point of view, of their perspective. And I always said that, say, hey, how anything is viewed, either if you're a liberal, conservative, Republican, Democrat, independent, on the Green Party, or you're just an angry old guy, who doesn't like weed. I see your point of view, and I see your point of view either way, and I accept that. I take it in. I won't argue with you. I won't call you a piece of shit. I won't end our friendship over it, but I've understood. I took what you have to say. But if you start trying to interrupt my life, my living, try to say I can't be this way, then now we're going to have a fight. If you're trying to harm people, now we're going to have a fight, and now I'm going to enforce. And that's what it's always been like. Like this whole scenario, I was so afraid of these guys, someone might throw something at them. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be there. I put on my big old spiked mask and walked around in a circle with my friend Shane, who had a bat. And we walked around. And as these guys tried to yell something, I got in their face. You're a big man with a gun. Mm-hmm. You're concerned. Mm-hmm. Like, what is it you're concerned about? That you need to be standing on the corner with an AR. Are you gonna mow us down? Is that what it is? You're prepared to just go freaking whatever? It's like, yeah, you have your right to be there. You're concerned about the riots. But what the fuck? You ready for a goddamn war? Or it's like half of these people have sticks and pieces of paper, and you're just gonna why? Is this the thought process that we had an opposing protest, and it was just so stupid.
There's so many. The thing that always scares me was Boogaloo Boys and the South will rise again, and even people on leftist sides. I'm like, they're like, let it pop off, and I'm like, are you ready to shoot me in my face right now? And I'm really concerned that so casually people are like, I think the only way things are gonna change is if I kill you, and I'm like, there's no other point we can get to before that. And not to get me wrong, I'm a huge Second Amendment fan. I feel like marginalized and vulnerable communities need to be armed and trained immediately. I feel like there's a lot of veterans that can aid in that. Organizations like the Redneck Revolt and the SRA, mm-hmm. I think those are beautiful things. But I'm like, could we possibly not kill each other? And I'm like, I don't want it to get to that point. But people are so ready for it. Mm. And it bothers me because I'm like, people are like, could I take a human life? But I'm like, even besides that, even if you lived after that, that's a lot of therapy I'm going to need for the rest of my entire life. So maybe, let's not shoot each other.
People are just weird.
Yeah, but I also believe that, when Black Lives Matter goes out to protest, the new Black Panthers went out in Atlanta, and even though they're super anti-Semitic, we need to talk about that. That's the discussion that needs to be had. I 100% believe that when we're fighting for trans rights, for gay rights, for Black lives, for the end of white supremacy, for all of these harmful situations, those people who are coming to those protests, there needs to be a percentage of them who are visibly armed. And so the armed protest is not what I have a problem with. It's the because I feel like that's a right. It's what people are protesting. And I'm like, all I said was less police violence, and now you're standing on the street with your AR. And I'm like, why me? Shit, I have nothing. You also have nothing. The fuck are you gonna shoot me for?
It seemed like a lot of people didn't push for any sort of assault weapons bans or anything like that until people were protesting in Watts. At
at the courthouse there with like assault rifles and stuff like that with the Panthers.
Well,
Like,
a lot of
people didn't care to have legislation like that until
They saw black people with guns.
Yeah, gun control is specifically related to the fear of armed Black and brown communities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's when everybody was cool with you having an AR into the city until the Black Panthers rolled up with their ARs.
Yeah.
And that's when gun legislation started getting enrolled. And so that's when people are like, when I'm like hanging out with my lib friends and my centrist, I don't have centrist friends. But when I'm hanging out with them and they're like anti-gun, they're like gun violence is a problem, all these things are a problem, and I'm like, you're absolutely 100% right, but there's Nazis in the gun range right now. And what are you gonna do? They're like, I'm like, you're gonna lay down and die? And I was like, because that's not what I want for you, like, at all. But unfortunately, like, we're living in this weird limbo of fear and whatnot. So I'm like, get yourself a fucking gun, learn how to use it, and then do anything except for shoot somebody.
Yeah. I like that you use the term scraps somewhere in this conversation. That's like definitely something that I like. My phrase that I obsess about a little bit is like that we're all fighting over scraps. Like we've been like the normal person has been put in a position where like shit is pretty tight, and there's something that happens in our psychology where like if our life is threatened or we feel stressed about bills or about eating or whatever, like we'll turn into a locust.
It's survival.
Yeah, there's a real. This might be a little long, but like, it's fascinating because grasshoppers and locusts are different species. But what happens is that like it'll rain, and so all the grass will grow in the spring, and the grasshoppers will come and eat it, and then they will propagate and grow, and then the grass goes away. And like physiologically, they change into locusts, into like what we hear about in the Bible with like they'll come and eat everything because there's just like so many of them and there's so little resources that they just turn into like this whole different like creature, and that happens with us. And like something that I appreciate about like class consciousness or talking about like class issues with stuff and like doing intersectional work, like relating how different racial stuff affects class stuff clearly. Like we can start to identify like how we don't have to fight over scraps, and like if we put our scraps together and come together as communities, like then we can start to do meaningful work against like structures that are harmful.
Exactly.
Well,
We're like, people forget that we're just monkey people with reptile brains, just
Right.
weird animals with opposable thumbs and way too much consciousness.
For sure.
Well, and I feel that fighting over scraps mentality is like where that all lives matter like sort of mentality comes from, where it's just like, well, I've had stuff happen. It's like, but like I noticed like it's like I said to some old wrinkly ball sack on Facebook, Isaiah, that you know the people who say all lives matter are like the same people who would like freak out if their daughter dated like a black dude or something like that. It's like you know, they'll claim to not have that, but it's like
I don't see color. Yeah.
I'm like,
I'm not
if you don't see
racist,
color,
but-
you don't see systemic oppression. If you don't see color, you don't see how I'm being discriminated against.
Right.
Yeah.
Specifically, yeah.
It's a kind of a pro and a con, isn't it?
It's an overcorrection in academics as well.
Like, I don't see race, but then at the same time, you can't sympathize with me. I mean, I get that you're all about all this and you love everybody, but you're not going to be able to sympathize with me because you don't understand how to be of color. And that's a lot of why I say a lot of people aren't racist; they're just ignorant.
Yeah.
I'm like very proudly black, and I want people to like when people see me, and I'm like, not being racist doesn't mean not recognizing me as a black person. And I'm like, if you don't see race, you're completely diminishing a whole part of my identity.
I've had at least 5 I'm not gonna call them friends, acquaintances say, I'm not racist, I'm just like not into black men, and it's a preference. It's not a race thing. And I'm like, oh, is it? Is it? Like, is it really just a preference thing? They're like, it's just I can't help what I'm attracted to, and I'm like,
That's
so
the
are
thing.
you socialized into?
That's the thing in gay culture too, though. Like gay
no.
people can
No
say on their
femmes, no
profile.
blacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
No Hispanics or whatever, man.
that's like the exact same thing as like the unconscious biases of our society. Like that's just watching them play out in like a relationships, standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing.
Right.
And I'm like, by all means, like these people who are racist, they're like, it's a preference. I'm like, I don't want you to date a black woman with how you exist right now. And I'm like,
Right,
it's not what I'm
right.
asking
You're like,
from you.
please fucking don't.
But then there's also
We have enough bullshit. That
Yeah, get the
Then
fuck
I
out
also
of
have a problem with the white girls who are like, I only like black men, and I'm like,
Because
well,
it's weird because I'm like
Why?
fetishization.
yeah, like
Yeah,
that's a fetishization. Like that's not
fetishizing
good
is
either. Like I don't want you to go to the other extreme. Like both of those are bullshit. Like what?
I was talking about that like with like Asian people, like Asian women are fetishized to a huge degree, and then like Asian men like are cast out in the dating world
Because
a
they
lot.
can't
Yeah.
infantilize Asian men, but that's what they do with Asian
Yeah,
women.
Yeah.
and it has to do with like I feel like it has to do with like the submissive like aspect of like what white men think Asian culture is, and how like
Yeah.
these like
My mama.
Asian women like want to be saved by them from like their communist culture.
Yeah,
Which is, like
a lot of that
I've
probably
heard
got
a lot of white men.
fed by World War II and like Vietnam and stuff.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I got a thing about Vietnam.
That's a wonderful way to start a sentence.
This kid. He was from He was Vietnamese, and he was an exchange student at my school. And it was fucking precious. This guy was adorable because he did not understand what a Native American was. Because the first day I met him, my friend at the time, he goes, dude, I got this fucking guy you gotta check out. And I told him I know a real Indian. And I'm like, what? No, fuck, come you go. So we go to lunch, and he comes in the room with the guy, and he goes, that's him right there. And here's the little Asian guy's like,
He's like, no fucking way.
And I'm like, yeah. And I look at him like, what are you fucking doing? He sat next to me, and he's like, he gets all his stuff out, and he pulls out this little translator or something like that, and he goes, so are you really Native American? I'm like, yeah. Oh, you can speak English and blah blah. And he just went on like, it's like in his culture, they believe we still ride horses and live in teepees. And he keeps asking me, do you eat like deer and bear and stuff like that? And I'm like looking at him, and here my friend, he was just fucking, he can't breathe. He's rolling around his chair, and I'm like, did you put this guy up to this? And he goes, no, this guy really believes he's never met a Native American.
You're like, yo, we're not Amish.
He thought I was Mexican too. And so he became my best friend, one of my best friends out there. His name was On Lee. He's a smart guy, and he lives in New York now. But at the same time, meeting a Native American, to him it was just like,
wow. To be fair, I lived in Vietnam for a while, and like their idea of what American culture, like their information is a little bit suppressed about American culture, and it's like they're still like what they think is like cool hip American clothes, or like those early 2000s clothes. And then, like,
baggy shorts.
They dress like they're a Disney Channel character.
You guys leave Jinko jeans alone.
I was gonna say, Jinkos, are those a thing?
Are those the really long?
I'm wearing
the huge ass shorts.
You guys leave Trip alone too.
I'm wearing Jankos in.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And I'm gonna be honest,
We got a whole set.
They're roomy. They feel great.
They bought it.
And they don't chafe.
yeah.
Gotta explain it to people every fucking time.
Hell yeah.
Like they came back, they're cool.
They have my size. I'm like 44. I'm a big man. I'm like out there. Like you go to like fucking Walmart, you're not gonna find a 44 unless it's like Dickies fucking work pants or like overalls. Like jeans are like segregated down to like 36. I'm a big guy. Jinkos and trip pants are my friendly little neighborhood right now.
The trip pants. Especially the ones that unzip. So
Yeah, just like these. I have the unzip.
I love
It's hot today.
That's hardcore.
Moving on.
Do you keep the pant legs with you, or is it like?
I
you got all the pockets.
because my pockets are huge.
Oh man,
It's about
I got them all, guys.
It's not a fucking issue. All right.
I have a small
adapt to
dog in
diverse-
these pants.
Ready for
I
anything.
had my lunch with Romeo. A couple beers and whatever. I'm good to go. Look, my back pocket's maybe that long.
We have a big donation from Saisa's mom.
From Saisa's mom. She'd
Yeah.
be sending
Saisa.
us money because my parents don't want me to be Mother Teresa, but it's their fault. They made me this way. Yeah. And so sometimes when I be like, we have to support this cause, my mom's like, I'm not going to send you this money, Saisa. Money that I desperately want. She's like, it's to your cause. And I'm like, yes.
Send it to me. There's a fatty donation too that will go to the Black Heritage Center here.
Foundation.
Foundation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. She's cool like that.
Thanks,
Is that
Saisa's
what
mom.
the
Thank you.
Tamika.
Tamika Shuman. Miss Shuman.
We have 2 questions.
Oh.
Oh, we
Yeah.
do.
Isaiah,
Yeah.
good question. Why did you start doing a noise project?
I don't know, just a way to like really express my anger and use it as like a way for me to release it through a positive way instead of hurting myself, which I do regardless of the show or not. But
I was gonna say, with the way you thrash around.
yeah.
Like that shirt?
Oh, the shirt.
Definitely go to a Melted Dog Puke show. Yeah.
Yeah, there will be some hurting self stuff. Like
Am I
you
gonna
know.
get involved too?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
I'm gonna.
What kind of hurting yourself have you done on stage? You're talking about hurting yourself
I got
on
this
stage, right?
So this one time we had one of those clothes rack things that would be at like Goodwill or something.
Yeah.
And Isaiah like jumped on that and like slid into the crowd, but then it like collapsed like halfway. And that was pretty cool.
How did I thought it was gonna like crash under me, but then I just landed on it and smacked hard on it. And then it slid down, then broke apart.
And then his signature move is the broken aluminum can cut on the forehead.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I got like
Where was
scarred
that again?
right there. It's usually
When did that happen? What show was that?
that was whatchamacallit.
That one place.
There was a couple times. Yeah, including
Craft
the
local.
yeah, when I broke down the thing, the clothes rack, I cut myself open with that rusty because it was like all rusty inside.
Oh shit.
And then
Yeah.
Dry Fest 0.5 shit,
Yeah,
dude.
dude.
Well, that was
Yeah.
fun.
Oh, that was a
I
fun time.
fractured my elbow there.
Oh,
I hurt
You
my
ran up
elbow.
the stairs earlier and like started screaming at people because they all went upstairs.
I didn't know that was part of the act.
Yeah.
He just thought Isaiah was just like
So crazy.
flopping, like just by himself with me.
I was like telling people, I'm like, oh, that is the show that's happening downstairs. Like it has migrated. Yeah.
That's not a homeless guy. That's actually a performer.
There were girls that were like alarmed at it.
Really?
Yeah, they were like,
yeah.
that guy's fucking out of line, dude.
That guy's an animal.
We're gonna get this guy thrown out right now.
Who's man's?
My favorite of yours is still the first time I ever saw Isaiah perform. He just like put his amp down and put peanut butter
Yes.
on the guitar and just let his dog lick it.
That's the memory
On the
I
strings?
had.
Yeah.
And he like dumped something. Oh, you were like he dumped something over your head.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It's always a good time.
It's always a good time.
He once went downstairs. He put his guitar through the hole in the floor, and then he went all the way downstairs, and then he was like fucking like
sick.
slamming it through the hole. I was just like, how how did he get down there? And then he started sticking his fingers through.
Wait, that was that guitar too, right?
Yeah,
That jazz
yeah.
master? Hold it up to the camera real quick.
That used fucking thing.
This is Jasmine.
How is that thing still alive?
I don't know.
When he first got it, I accidentally broke a knob on it.
Oh yeah.
There's some Waste Division stickers on there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. On their product placement. Yeah.
Shout out to LB. Shout out to
You
Bert.
sell out.
Leave me alone, guys. I need to talk to the Sprite representative.
That's not punk. That's not punk rock at all.
He's advertising, yeah.
That's really sad. Doing things for money.
Those squires, they're tough.
Got another question.
Yeah?
Does anyone know if there's new board members going into Black Heritage Foundation?
Oh, that was a question I can ask as I am entering the foundation, but I don't know right off the bat. I do know that they're always accepting new members, black and non-black. A lot of their members are not black, so don't feel like you are like at the board meeting I was at, like it was actually the board was only like I would say half black. And there were some other communities of color and a few white people on the board as well.
Black history is American history.
Yeah. So everyone join, everyone support, and you can probably ask if you come to Juneteenth. You can probably ask either Pastor Melvin or any of the other people there who are kind of in charge of that. So.
Sick. Isaiah, I have a point. I like how you talk about expressing anger in your music.
Mm-hmm.
I have like Friends and Fools, right? That band in Missoula. My friend Thomas, who sings in that band, was talking about like how for the longest time she felt like she couldn't express anger as like an indigenous person. Because it's like so easily dismissed as like savage or something.
Yeah.
Like you're not allowed to be emotive if you're in these classes because it just like shoves you into a category where you can be dismissed. So I don't know. I guess it's just like I just want to say it's really cool that you are being angry in your sound.
Yeah.
So good job. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
It's some bullshit.
It's some bullshit.
Yeah, because it's like there's this new thing that like when you're having like discussions and if you show any type of like emotion, people are like, well, I'm the most logical and cool-headed about it, therefore I win. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm like, no, the reason why I'm getting so emotionally involved in this is because this is something I am passionate about. And I'm like, I cannot remove my emotions from these issues. It's one of the founding like this whole thing that like facts don't care about your feelings, but all of my feelings are based off of facts. And I'm like, so therefore, like, it's okay if I get angry when bullshit is going on. And it's like this whole, like, we've got all these, like, terrible stereotypes, and it's like the negative, like, angry black woman stereotype. And I'm just like, people are like, oh, you don't want to be like that. And I'm like, putting the pants on, and I'm like, putting the whole uniform on. And I'm like, no, I'm 100% the irate, loud, angry black woman in public. Ask me what the fuck I'm angry about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, it's not like I'm just out here just like upset for the sake of being upset. Like, I've got reasonable, and even if they're slightly unreasonable, like, I've got legitimate emotions that need to be addressed.
Yeah.
And it's like, the whole thing is like these communities have evolved around survival, how to survive in white America. And so when I'm like talking to the city administrator or talking to the police chief or just talking to people, like regular people where I'm supposed to be presenting myself as a professional and I'm wearing a blazer and some loafers, I just like completely, and I'm like the code switching into professional language, I throw that to the side. If anything, I talk more like colloquially and expressive in these professional zones because I need people to recognize like not just a race issue but also like a class and elitism issue, that even if I'm not saying things with my $7 words, I have poignantly and succinctly expressed the same thing that you were about to say. And I was like, so why is it when I say it like this, the value of it is diminished? And I'm like, people need to be forced to exist alongside of each other. And I'm like, and even if I'm like more colloquially expressive than I would consider myself on a regular basis, like that is purposeful. And I'm like, you're not going to dismiss me like you would dismiss somebody else, like in any other circumstance where you're like, oh, they're cussing, or they're not using these words, or they're like being loud. And I'm like, you're gonna hear what I have to say, and you're gonna hear it exactly as I said it, and there will be value in that, and you will not ignore it. And I think a lot of more people need to get like that, where someone says something like in a meeting and you go, that sounds like bullshit to me. And people are like, you're not supposed to talk about it like that. Shannon Stover would say not to say it like that. I don't know. Shannon Stover's a big... Actually, maybe Shannon Stover would be like, Siesa, that is some bullshit.
Maybe.
I'm sorry, she's a...
Yeah, who is it?
She teaches the AmeriCorps Vistas, like our professional and career development classes, and like things about like emotional intelligence. She's a independent business owner and basically the bee's knees. I respect her so much, and I want to be her one day. So shout out to Shannon Stover.
But she would say it's bullshit.
She would tell me
to say it somehow.
She would say not bullshit. She would say, read the room, Siesa. Express your anger, but in productive ways. That's what she would say. And instead, I just go, that's some bullshit.
That's one thing is like code switching and things like that are things that I like. Growing up in Montana with such a small population of anybody but white people and even the Native American population in Montana is what, like 10%, less than 10%, code switching and things like that were in my purview until I lived in like Los Angeles and had friends that would legitimately tell me about, I totally switch up how I talk when I come to work, and I'm like, what? That sounds crazy to me that people have to do that, but to be taken seriously, a lot of people genuinely have to change how they talk.
How they are,
yeah, and it's
around here I have to code switch just for rednecks, pretty much. If I want to genuinely ask how a clerk is doing, I'm like, hey, how you doing tonight? Just trying to sound like a fucking folksy thing.
There's such a negative connotation attached to code switching, but it's when we were talking about earlier when academics are trying to talk about these issues, there's really a value in code switching to make sure you're not using highly specialized language, so that the conversation is accessible to everywhere. In that circumstance, code switching is a really good thing.
Right.
Code switching for survival, on the other hand, is a huge problem.
Right.
I think something about code switching that happens a lot here is a lot of Indians get told that they talk like white people.
Yeah.
Especially if somebody
I get that one a lot.
you can get started on that one.
Yeah, I would say no. We're started now. I would say some of the earliest racism that I experienced in my life was not just from white people; it's from other people in the Black community. Because I would say that I talk a little bit of a square. I see that. I recognize that. And it's literally all these different interests I share where people will be like, that's not what Black people are into. That's what white people are into. You talk white, you sound like you have white interests. But that wasn't just being called an Oreo by white friends. That was being called an Oreo by Black family members and then the Black community. But the thing is I was a child and I was super butthurt about it, and I don't think we should do things like that anymore. But you get these I feel like these two groups of people in these marginalized groups who get cast into white roles by the people they belong to, is they either grow up and accept that in their heart and find other people of color who share their same interests, or they become super jaded and distant from the community that they feel rejected from. And that's where I'm talking about you, Candace Owens.
I wanted to bring that up in our talk earlier.
There you go.
The time. No, you go.
No, I'm done. It's you.
I was just gonna talk about. I'm calling out all the white people who use the few Black people online who have internalized racism to justify your own racism. I had so many friends and a family member or two just send it to me. What do you think? And I said, first of all, fuck Candace Owens. And second of all, doesn't fucking matter what he did. Doesn't change his right to live. Candace Owens' video just like I said, justifies people's biases. And it's like, oh, one black person agrees with me. That means everything I say.
Well, have you seen the Hodges twins is a thing now where people, these two black men, they're twins and they're white as fuck, but that has nothing to do with anything. Name? They're the Hodges twins. I don't know the Hodges. I hope I'm right. But anyway, they paired a lot of they came out with this video where they're talking about how they would never be caught saying Black Lives Matter. And the thing is, people are like, well, these black people say it because they think that black people can't be criticized because they're afraid of being called racist. Segue into something else I wanted to talk about, I'm sorry. But the reason why regular people want to return back to the 1950s, like when they're like, I want to go back to the golden age, is not necessarily because these people are like racist and they want to live in a racist times. It's because in the 1950s, if you accidentally did like a microaggression or you accidentally sexually assaulted somebody at work or all of these things, there's no consequences for it. Now people are living in a time when they're called out for it and they have to pay the repercussions for it. And they're like, I want to go back to a time where maybe I'm not racist, but if I accidentally say something racist, no one's going to yell at me. You're not going to be comfortable anymore, fuckers. That time is over.
I'm constantly uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable talking about it. I was uncomfortable in the interview just because what the fuck do I have to say? I mean, I have, you know what I mean? We're all learning and fuck, I have so much to learn and being anti-racist and being an ally, which there's some weird shit about allyship too because it's not fucking enough, and being anti-racist is a lifelong trek up a fucking mountain that never will fucking end. And people are like, oh, I had 8 petitions, I'm done for the week. I'm like, no, fucker, you're not. And you better cry about the fact, you better cry, you better be uncomfortable, I've just been sitting in a puddle of uncomfortability, and fucking good, I should be. We all should be. And it's just but now it's just speaking out about it, you're just well, fuck, I don't want to say the wrong thing, what the fuck am I talking about? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so and I feel like white people think that's only happening to them where they're being put in uncomfortable positions. But that's how I feel there's so many times where I fucked up, in the trans community. And I'm telling you, when I was in high school, I was a total edgelord. I was I don't think it was a phrase at the time, but I was an all lives matter. Trans people are mentally ill people are liars. Any bad opinion that could be had, it was my opinion. And so I'm it was really uncomfortable to be I've got all these different things that are against me, but I still have all of these privileges that I have. I had a dad who worked a good job. I came from a 2-parent household. There's certain things that I have access to that I know my friends, even if their parents wanted to do those type of things for them, they couldn't. And so I'm being uncomfortable is just part of the human existence. I'm it's not something to feel bad about. It's not even a criticism on your personal character. White privilege or being white does not make you a bad person. And I'm but that's what people hear when they're oh, you have white privilege. They're I never was consciously racist about anything. And I'm whoa. That's not what the fuck we're talking about at all here. But it's such a tendency to center ourselves in conversations that have nothing to do with us.
There's 2 sides of the spectrum on that. There's the white guilt and then white saviorism kind of thing where it's you
don't do either.
No, but that's what I mean. That's that thing where it's just when you feel uncomfortable because you're trying to be the best ally you can be, it's you don't want to drift to either side of that. You don't want to be I'm so good because I fucking signed some petitions. It's this is something that's a never-ending pursuit of growth for our society. It's I don't know. It's being an ally in any cause is interesting in that way. You don't want to
make mistakes.
Yeah, you don't want to be the humble bragger, but you don't want to be take the spotlight away from the issue and put it on yourself.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'm it doesn't. I feel people are taking things personally, and it's coming from like a really bad place. Like I said something about white guilt earlier. White guilt is white people's problems. I hardly ever see black people saying, hey, white people, feel bad about Jim Crow. That's not a thing, but it's like the question is recognize that it happened and that it's still having its negative effects to this day.
Right.
And it's like the easiest definition of white privilege is you will not be discriminated against because you are white. And that's it. If you're poor, you will experience classism. And it is something we will have to address whether you are black or whether you are white. Because it's like a bad thing. And I was like, but you will not be pulled over for being white. Like that's not a thing that's gonna happen to you. You will not be denied a loan because you are white. Like these are not experiences you have, which doesn't make you a bad person. Like I don't want you to also be experiencing racism. I don't want racism against white people to be a thing. I want there to be no racism whatsoever. But white people who are like, oh, white people have no culture, or I'm not one of those white people, or I'm getting invited to the barbecue. No, the hell you're not. I'm like, absolutely not. I'm like, I've been to Ireland. There is a distinct, different culture there, with its different intricacies in the way that it expressed ourselves. And I'm like, that's something like all like being proud of being this, or being from Maine, or being from whatever. Those are things you can absolutely feel pride in. But like white pride is like, you know, that's not it. That's not it. I was like, but there's still so many facets about yourself and your heritage. Like, if you're like, well, I don't know where the fucking any of my family members are. I'm just proud to be an American. I'm like, hell yeah. Fucking do it. Get the eagle tattoo. Like, I support you 100%.
Yeah.
Get the bird.
It's also like you can't love something and also not be critical of it. And that's why people like think that like just because like I'm American means that you can't criticize the fucking government. Like, yes, you can, and do it. If you love something, like, show that, like, accept that it needs growth. Like, let it be known that it needs growth. If we're not critical of, like, if we're not critical of the people we love personally, if my parents weren't fucking critical of me, I would have never fucking grown. I mean, like, that's a fucking simplified way of
just
saying
go to
it.
a different country.
I'm like, what?
Don't fix the country you love. Go to a different one. Because,
Well, what am I?
What were we talking about?
I was like,
Wait,
get
what?
told to go to a different country. This is my country.
They're like, love it or leave it. And I'm like, that's not how that shit works.
That's
I'm like, life requires effort. And I'm like, okay, if there's something here that I don't like, instead of leaving it like a big old baby, I'm just gonna stay here and do the suffering.
Be
But
willing
like,
to change it.
But
Are you
like,
done with the church?
What were we talking about changing earlier?
Oh,
instead
you
of
were saying leave the
church. Yeah.
Which I highly disagree with. That's the one thing that Siesa has said that I don't agree with.
burn it all!
I'm just saying, don't leave your church. Like,
Convince people.
The people and the places you love, just convince them and work on it and work on it and work on it. And if you just leave it, you're taking the easy fucking way out.
Jana's right if you're white. Black
If you're white,
They're like when white people are like, oh, I'm unfriending these racists on my Facebook, and I'm like,
yeah,
I don't
I
like
hate that.
why, because then I have to deal with their racism. It's still me who has to put up with that problem. And I'm like, I should be able, and like, if I'm like gay and someone says some homophobic shit, I'm like, get the fuck out of here. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Like the other people in their lives should be there to like tell them what they've done wrong and like help them into like personal growth and everything, but it should never be like, I feel like so much of civil rights or anybody who's fighting for their rights, the onus of their problems are put into them. Like people are still being discriminated in Hawaii, and the whole history of Hawaii got annexed into the United States is awful, and now that's like Native Hawaiian people's problems. And I'm like, they're not the ones who did this. Or like they're like, oh, Native Americans are discriminated against. Native American activists need to fix it. And I'm like, they didn't cause this problem. What am I ranting about?
I don't know. I have a tie-in though. Somebody recently, I was talking to him. Something that I've done for a while is like for entertainment, listen to conservative radio.
It's important.
I should do more of that.
Yeah, and it's something that like I've talked to different people and like people of color or whatever, and like some people just can't. Like they're like, this is so disgusting. I can't detach to the extent that like I can treat it as just entertaining. But like that's something I'm able to do, and it might have something to do with me being raised like cis white male. Like I'm fairly comfortable just like dealing with that bullshit and like entering that realm in a way. And even like on my podcast, like I've made a point of talking to people who are different and who are like conservatives and who are from around here, and like trying to find that place of like where we can talk about things. Like something I'm really interested in is how on the political spectrum we have like left and right, but it kind of comes around the back where you have like
the horseshoe.
You have radical anarchists who are like trying to start communes and shit, and then you have like really conservative people who are like pioneers, like trying to do the same type of shit, like going to do it all yourself. And so
The libertarian?
yeah, libertarians and anarchists like have something in common because they both fucking hate cops and hate the government and like
Republicans
the
who openly
preppers.
smoke weed. That's what
we're talking about Republicans who smoke weed. Honestly, and like it does seem like there needs to be a conversation happening between those two people. Like they have a lot in common and probably like could teach each other a lot of stuff.
It's weird because all these intersections like exist within all of our personal movements, but I think one of the things is like when I'm trying to like I think we need to listen to like Fox News, conservative news, and everything like that, because this is what other people we're trying to interact with are listening, and how are we going to have these conversations without knowing where we're coming from?
You have to know their reality, right?
Exactly, but another thing that's frustrating to me is like I'm trying to listen to these people talk about their views on like race and everything, and I can't detach myself because they're talking about me.
Yeah.
Like when people are like the gays, and people are like, well, I'm gonna listen to it to feel how they feel about gay rights. When they say the gays, they're talking about me, and I'm like, what did I do to you, stranger?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Except for I don't know, exist outside
Right.
of the confines of like what's comfortable in somebody else's reality.
Right.
Yeah. And also, like, that, it has a whole other thing, too, because, like, the intersectionality of, like, being gay and then also, like, being a person of color, too, and, like, how that's a lot, like, I, like, being, like, identifying as bisexual, I feel like it's been, like, that's, like, a hot thing to be. Like, if you're white and you're cute and you're 23, people are like, oh, being bisexual, hot, you want to make out with a girl in front of me? Which I've been asked too many times. And it's just like, fuck. Like, that's a big divide. Big divide.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
Well, shout out to intersectionality. Kimberly Crenshaw was talking about black women.
Mm-hmm.
And every time someone uses intersectionality, they're just talking about fake things. I'm like, put respect on her name. Anytime you say intersectionality, picture her beautiful face in your mind. She's still alive. She's not dead. We already co-opted her language and all of her years of academic experience and experience as a black woman already took her word and then started throwing it away. They're like, no, we're talking about white girls who are bisexual. And I'm like, that's not what intersectionality is
Exactly.
for. Even though it is still a concept that applies to it. Kimberly Crenshaw, put some respect on her name. You know how upset I'm gonna be if that's not her name? I think I'm right, but now. Okay. I'm like, wait a second.
Okay, so it is nearly 10 p.m.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
We could keep talking for a long time.
I know, yeah, we could probably go on forever.
We'll have
but,
all of you back again.
Yeah, we should just go around, like, what does everyone have going on? Like, plug whatever shit you
Projects
have
or-
going
yeah.
on, yeah.
I'm still doing my thing. I have the 19th of Kirk's?
Mm-hmm. For LV's birthday.
Yeah, I'll be performing again. I'll perform a little small thing because
A story or?
Yeah, well, we're trying to get creative now since the whole COVID thing. So we're still trying to have that little variety show Nick is putting on, and we're trying to get around these boundaries. That's what we did. I did a show last month and about anger. I did an encore, and so we did it live. I was all hooked up to a mic and everything, and was in the room by myself with Mariette. She was, let's call it gimbal. Mm-hmm. The thing was kind of putting it on me, and so we're trying to get around that and still try to bring out our work at the same time. So on that 19th, I know we're having another show. Me and my little brother have a little some side projects going, and just trying to still kind of keep motivated, and because we don't got local shows anymore, but we still try to come up with stuff to still bring out, and so I guess that's what we have coming up.
Cool. Nice, man.
I'll also be at LP's birthday party doing something or other. I don't really have anything to plug. I don't know. Probably someone who give me a job.
I've got a recorder.
Give me a yeah.
No, I'll do some. I know what I'm gonna do at LB's birthday. I'm gonna write a poem about how much I love him as a dog. Yeah, I know.
He's already been through a lot for a year.
Oh my god, he's such a good boy.
Yeah.
But other than that, you know, I do art around town sometimes.
We'll have you back for poetry for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't really want to plug anything personally. Not the time, but.
No, I mean any like orgs,
Juneteenth-
anything like that.
What?
Any orgs or anything like
Organization.
that.
Oh, plug any orgs.
Yeah.
You know, we
Org,
actually we have been coordinating a hygiene kit project through the Community Development Division, and we're going to be giving out these hygiene kits, I think, to the Hub, Family Service, and then we might be able to call in to the Community Development Division if you are in need of a mask and other hygiene products, which a thing if anybody is in need of one. And then besides Juneteenth, other shit. I mean,
Remind us about when and where for Juneteenth, please.
Juneteenth is going to be next Saturday, 1 to 5 p.m., South Park Gazebo. They're going to be stacked lunches. It's not going to be vegetarian, vegan friendly. Sorry. I'm also anyway. Bring your own cooler, bring your own shit.
Bring some hummus.
Bring some hummus.
And bring some money to give to the Black
Bring some money to give to the Black Heritage Foundation, or bring your phone and Venmo, because I know all you bitches will be like, I don't have cash on me. Oh, you have your phone. I know you do. Anyway, that's all I feel like promoting right now. So
Cool.
Awesome, thank you.
Come on, Trash
Michael,
King.
anything?
Go on.
Go to Kirk's Grocery.
Kirk's Grocery. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
they have the morning things there that we did.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if any of those are like scheduled again or if anything similar, but that's definitely not going to be the last time something like that is there. So.
Shane's doing a big project with all the posters and everything.
Oh yeah. He's hanging up all our work on
He's
the
doing
wall.
like a tapestry.
Cool.
Oh, and I should add that if you guys remember me with my banner. Sorry, hold on. It's to this guy's thing. If you don't see my banner, go ahead and sign your name on the back of my banner if you were with me at the protest. Because that's going to be like a permanent thing over at Kirk's, and I want everyone who was there to put their name on it just as a remembrance.
Cool.
Oh,
Okay.
no.
All right. I'll plug my fellas in Space Heater. You guys will be the death of me. Good old Kelso, Will, and Tanner.
It's Space Eaters band, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
The good old Great Falls boys.
Hell yeah.
And if anybody wants to play some Fortnite sometime, let me know.
You haven't been on
my
games, what
Facebook
are you talking about?
or Instagram at Millions of Dead Cucks.
Nice.
Nice. That's it.
Cool. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Yeah.